Every single night, this dude dreamed of escaping his painfully basic life. He craved waking up in an epic fantasy world more than anything. So he straight up quit his 9 to 5 and hunted everywhere for a glitch in the matrix to cross over. And boom, one random day, his wild wish actually came true. But definitely not the way he expected. It turned into a literal nightmare. He got reincarnated as a massive barbarian named Arthur getting dumped into a frozen hellscape, known as the White Desert. And let me tell you, this place was crawling with absurdly overpowered monsters. For years, he was stuck grinding in this wasteland while some glitchy system kept spamming the exact same notification. Quest incomplete. Cut to today, kicking off just like any other brutal morning in the White Desert. Two barbarians completely obliterate a massive scorpion, tearing the beast to absolute shreds. Then Arthur steps up, glowing with this sick purple aura as he effortlessly slices the leftover monsters into confetti. He lets out a heavy sigh and mutters, "Only barbarians would actually flex being this clueless." The barbarian girl just blinks, totally lost, and asks what clueless even means. "Can you eat it?" she asks. But before he can even drop an explanation, they start wolfing down this raw monster meat. This nasty, stringy garbage like it's a Michelin star meal. It hasn't even been a week and they're already pulling this stunt again. The girl and the bald dude flash him proud thumbs ups. They literally call eating poison a noble challenge. Suddenly the bald guy freezes. His massive body starts violently shaking, foam bubbling past his lips. 1 second later, he faceplants into the snow, throwing up glowing green bile. The girl totally panics and starts slapping the life out of him, but Arthur is so over it. He just turns his back and mutters that he's going for a walk. Meanwhile, deep in the frozen wasteland, a squad of mercenaries is struggling through the snow. One of them won't stop whining about freezing his butt off, while another insists that crossing this hellhole is straight up suicide no matter how fat the paycheck is. But their captain instantly shuts down the chatter. They all knew exactly what they signed up for, even if literally nobody expected it to be this agonizing. Inside a cozy heated carriage, an old butler eavesdrops on the squad, clearing his throat. He glances at his VIP passenger and asks if she's holding up okay. The woman Melissa just flashes a soft smile and nods yes. But the butler just goes right back to roasting the mercenaries. Melissa tells him to cut them some slack. They were literally the only guys crazy enough to take this job, watching them shiver half to death outside. She asks if they should invite them inside to warm up, but the butler drops a hard no. Instead, he starts hyping up the dark legends of this icy wasteland. Melissa goes dead silent the second he brings up the monsters. But the old man warns her that the real threat is way worse, bringing up the legendary emperor, the only human who supposedly survived this frozen hell and lived to tell the tale. The guy came back completely unhinged, rambling about insane beasts, like massive snakes and bears that literally caused earthquakes. But his final warning hit different. The monsters weren't the real nightmare out here. The barbarians were. The butler totally brushes it off as campfire folklore. But Melissa isn't buying his confidence, especially since half those mythical monsters turned out to be real. Despite the creepy vibes, the old man just chuckles, pointing out that literally no one has ever seen a real barbarian. And yeah, she can't argue with that logic. Suddenly, the mercenary captain screams at the convoy to halt. He points into the storm, shouting that something's out there. Another dude panics, asking what he sees, squinting through the blinding blizzard. They spot a single shadowy figure standing in the snow, but it's practically impossible to make out any details. The captain totally tenses up and announces he's got good news and bad news. When the crew screams at him to just spit it out, he yells that the good news is, whatever it is, it's tiny. The bad news, it's charging right at them. Instantly, the whole squad goes into full battle mode. The captain rips his sword from its scabbard as the figure steps closer, and then the snow clears up. Bro, it's not a monster, it's a literal person. The guy casually strolls up to them and, yep, it's Arthur. He stops right in his tracks, locking onto them with those glowing neon purple eyes. The mercenaries are absolutely paralyzed with shock. Reality hits them like a truck. A real-life barbarian straight out of the horror stories, Arthur just flashes a chill smile. He only went out to stretch his legs, because he was sick of looking at his caveman friends, and now he randomly stumbles onto outsiders. Talk about insane luck. He steps up and casually introduces himself as Arthur, the silver barbarian, totally stoked to meet them. Giving the group a quick scan, he instantly clocks them as some rich merchants with hired muscle. He tells them straight up to turn back, even though he already knows they're way too stubborn to listen. His eyes lock onto that fancy carriage. The captain starts heavily sweating, ready to fight, but Arthur just smirks and drops the craziest proposal ever. Hey, I'd love to get hired too. He casually drops a bombshell he's volunteering to escort them through this frozen hellscape. The captain grips his weapon, asking if they're dealing with an enemy. Our guy just flashes a wicked smirk. If I were you'd, all be dropping dead right now. Cue the collective panic. The guards freeze, totally drained of color. The captain scrambles to knock on the VIP carriage door, asking his boss if she caught all that. Melissa confirms. Now the million-dollar choice is entirely up to her. She cuts right to the chase with the ultimate question: what are their odds in a fight? Scanning Arthur's imposing build, the captain brutally admits they'd get absolutely wrecked. After a tense beat of silence, Melissa takes the deal. The captain turns back to deliver the verdict. It's a yes. Arthur's eyes light up with that signature grin, music to his ears. He takes a single step forward, making the entire squad of time to talk to the real boss. The captain nervously growls at him to keep his hands where he can see them, but Arthur just hits him with that chillingly calm vibe. Out of options, the captain marches him toward the carriage. He totally blanks the complaints from his crew. The boss lady made the call, and throwing hands with this beast is literal suicide. Inside, the old butler is freaking out, but Melissa commands him to chill out. Suddenly, a heavy knock rattles the door. A shockingly polite voice echoes. "Hey there, how's it going? Mind if I hop in?" The butler lets out a full-blown shriek. Melissa doesn't even flinch. "Sure, come on in." Outside, Arthur pumps his fist mentally. His master plan just clicked. The poor butler is drenched in cold sweat, shaking like a leaf. Right across from him, Arthur just chilling with his arms crossed. His tone is weirdly gentle for a guy built like a tank. He tells the old man to take a breather, swearing he's not here to crack any skulls. Honestly, though, the butler isn't buying a single word of it. Meanwhile, Melissa is absolutely starstruck. She's literally staring down a legendary barbarian in the flesh. She stutters out a super awkward hello. Arthur just smoothly replies that the pleasure is all his. Arthur geeks out over how insanely cozy the carriage is while a literal blizzard rages outside. The blue-haired beauty casually drops that it's all magic, and he is instantly hooked. Real magic, he's never seen that stuff. Getting down to business, he bluntly states their survival odds are straight up zero. But hey, he's willing to act as their bodyguard. There's just one tiny catch. Sweating slightly, she asks what the damage is. Arthur flashes a knowing smirk and drops his price. Forget cash or royal favors. He just wants the lore. He needs Melissa is shook. Wait, that's it, Arthur nods. He knows she's getting the bargain of a lifetime. And it's not like she has a backup plan anyway. Deal accepted. Smug, he finally asks for her name. She goes full royal mode Melissa of House Akasa. He keeps it cool and simple, just Arthur. Boom. Contract sealed. Now let's rewind and check out Arthur's past life. Dude was literally just a massive nerd, spending 24/7 grinding video games and devouring fantasy novels. Then bam, he wakes up as this massive barbarian stranded in a sub-zero hell. No time to freak out. The frostbite alone would shred him, not to mention the swarms of monsters. So he went full goblin mode and fought for his life, until he leveled up enough to boss his own tribe around. But his main quest, escaping this snowy prison, but every single time he tried to dip a massive system prompt would just block him. Quest incomplete. Just as he was about to rage quit for good, real outsiders finally spawned in. That's when it clicked. The world outside this icebox, it was the exact epic fantasy realm he'd always dreamed of. After that revelation, he stopped playing defense. He went hardcore, grinding quest after quest with zero chill just to unlock the exit. This is why Melissa's intel is literal gold to him. See, the problem was, every other human he bumped into, they'd either try to jump him on sight, or their brains were completely fried by the cold. So yeah, just having a normal, non-stabby conversation for once. Huge flex. Then he flips the script. He points out they're hauling a crazy amount of weapons. He can literally hear the steel clanking in the carts. He shoots straight. Is there a massive war popping off outside? Melissa nods. The Empire and the Kingdom are totally throwing down. Turns out the outside world isn't exactly a cozy safe zone either. She breaks it down. The Empire is stacked with troops, but the Kingdom is holding the line, all thanks to some insane swordmasters and one legendary hero. Arthur's brain completely short-circuits. A hero swordmasters. He's instantly hyped, demanding to know their power levels. Melissa just stares at him, realizing this dude is completely clueless about the lore. So, she hits him with a question: has he ever heard of the mysteries? Then she totally breaks down how the power system works. Everything revolves around this energy called mystery. Only a tiny fraction of elites can actually tap into it, and they are split up into 5 different tiers. Down at rock bottom are the third-rate users. These guys can barely feel the vibe of the power, let alone actually use the stuff. Next up is the second tier, where they actually start throwing down for real. Right above them, the first-rate squad. This is the standard playing field for your average knights and mages. They take that raw energy and literally forge it into mana or aura. Way above them are the absolute units who have completely shattered human limits. We are talking about the Transcendence heavy hitters packing enough firepower to literally rip the sky apart. The Swordmaster totally falls into this god tier. But sitting at the absolute peak is the hero, a straight-up living legend with enough juice to rewrite the entire world. She throws in that even a bottom-barrel third-rate user would be an absolute big shot in some random small town. After soaking all that in, Arthur drops a deadpan response he wants to meet them. Melissa just stares, mind-blown, realizing this guy is dead serious. After being locked in this frozen hellscape for forever, literally fighting tooth and nail just to breathe, he looks at this fantasy world as nothing but a giant cage. And all he craves is finding out what is waiting outside those walls. His expression goes stone cold with pure determination. He straight up says he desperately wants to ditch this place. Then, flashing a cocky little smirk, he corrects himself. Leaving is not just some wish list item he absolutely has to get out. As the carriage keeps rumbling forward, Melissa finally drops the question she has been dying to ask. Is he seriously the Barbarian? He does not even try to deny it, pointing out she has clearly heard the rumors. She nods, dropping that she knows him from some ancient legend. Now it is Arthur's turn to be shook. Wait, there is a literal legend about him. Melissa is totally flabbergasted that he is clueless about his own lore. Arthur just bursts out laughing, suddenly remembering this wildly extra knight he bumped into way back. So that goofy dude was actually the Emperor. Even so, he plays it totally cool, shrugging it off and saying the legend is probably spot on. Then he pivots right back to business. Why on earth are they dragging a massive weapon stash through a blizzard? It is super obvious she wants to dodge the question. She starts stuttering hardcore, but under Arthur's piercing glare, she completely folds. Her family is desperately broke. Back in the day, they were balling as wealthy merchants, but their rivals totally wrecked their business, and now they are drowning in insane debt. Arthur connects the dots in a split second. She is smuggling weapons to the kingdom to fuel their war against the Empire. His logic is crazy sharp. The Empire is already stacked with a massive army, so they would not even need the extra gear. But the kingdom definitely does. He casually points out that with super high demand and zero supply, the profit margins must be absolutely massive. Massive enough to make her gamble her own life. And then he takes it a step further. He figures out her territory directly borders the Empire. That is exactly why she had to take this completely unhinged route through the snow. Melissa is literally speechless. She has zero choice but to admit he nailed it flawlessly. She is beyond impressed. The rumors painted him as some brainless meathead, but he is anything but that. Now she is seriously wondering who this guy actually is. But before she can even speak, the carriage violently jolts and slams to a dead halt. A gut-wrenching screech rips through the air. While everyone else goes into full panic mode, Arthur is just chilling. He already knows they have company. A split second later, a colossal black slime violently erupts right out of the snow. The entire crew completely freezes in terror. Arthur just casually squints while the girl screams out their absolute worst nightmare. A black slime. We are talking about a literal legendary monster straight out of ancient lore. She frantically explains that this snowfield is basically a mass grave for ultra-powerful warriors, and the few survivors who made it out specifically warned everyone about this exact beast. But Arthur just flashes a grin like this whole thing is purely entertaining. He casually drops that, yeah, they are super chewy, and actually make for a pretty decent little snack. Melissa's brain short-circuits. He actually eats them. He smirks, telling her to go catch one herself if she is so curious, leaving her totally dumbfounded. The monster does not even bother waiting for their little chat to wrap up. Letting out another piercing shriek, it straight up launches itself right at them. The guards completely lose their minds, and Melissa screams at Arthur to do something. Dude does not even flinch. He crosses his arms flatly, stating he is only stepping in if things actually get dangerous. To the stunned girl's absolute shock, he claims her mercenaries can totally handle it. He just wants a front row seat to see what outside fighters can really do. The pitch-black slime rockets toward them, and the captain frantically barks orders to throw up a shield wall. A soldier yanks his shield up in the nick of time, bracing himself to take the monster's full bone-crushing impact. But it's totally useless. The impact is absolutely brutal, sending the soldier flying backward like a rag doll. Another fighter lunges in, swinging a massive axe, only to get yeeted right into the air too. Zero damage dealt. The captain finally uses his brain and clocks their pattern. These slime monsters only move in straight lines. He immediately yells at his squad to scatter and strike, from all sides at once. Boom, it actually works. A spearman vaults off his weapon, launching himself right over the beast to land a sick hit directly on its blind spot. The monster screeches in pain. Not wasting a single second, the dude channels raw energy straight into his spear, gearing up for a heavy-hitting combo. While the slime is stumbling around, the captain totally blitzes the monster with a glowing blade. He commands his squad to keep the pressure on and spots the weak point, a hidden crystal core, channeling his aura. He unleashes a massive, devastating slash. The strike connects flawlessly, completely shattering the red crystal core into a million pieces. The monster literally melts into a puddle of nothingness. They actually pulled it off. The mercenaries are totally hyping each other up, but Arthur, he just stands there completely unbothered. But the celebration gets cut short. The next threat just dropped. An entire pack of massive, bloodthirsty wolves. One of the mercs gets way too cocky, flexing that the rumors about this death zone were totally overhyped. The captain instantly shuts that down, snapping that they aren't even halfway through this hellscape. Meanwhile, the squad is starting to give Arthur some seriously dirty looks. They're whispering that he's basically an NPC total dead weight, and they want to test his stats. One guy steps up and marches straight over to Melissa, demanding a quick chat. He throws it in her face that they're the ones putting their necks on the line for this escort mission. She's super grateful, admitting they were the only ones crazy enough to take the job. But the merc cuts her off, saying they have a massive problem. Arthur the Barbarian hasn't lifted a single finger to help, so he flat out asks for permission to fight him just to see if this guy actually deserves VIP treatment. Melissa is totally caught off guard while the merc captain explains the tension. The captain lets out a heavy sigh, admitting he tried to hold his squad back, but they are absolutely out for blood. Arthur, he just hits them with a cocky smirk, completely unfazed. If they really want to throw down, fine. But not right now. The mercenary is totally baffled, but Arthur's gaze shifts right past the squad, telling them their little sparring match is going to have to wait. As he steps forward, they don't get it until a terrifying, freezing aura hits them, chilling them straight to the bone. A deep, demonic voice echoes out, mocking the pathetic little mortals that just trespassed. The voice chuckles, hyping itself up for a rare snack. Suddenly, the snow erupts, and a monstrous giant white snake bursts out of the ground. It lets out an ear-splitting roar, demanding these humans bark for it. The beast openly taunts them, flexing that their pathetic struggling will only make them taste that much sweeter. The vibe instantly drops to absolute zero. The whole squad is completely paralyzed by the suffocating pressure radiating from this absolute unit of a snake. The real boss fight. It starts right now. Melissa screams in terror while the tough mercenaries can barely even stay on their feet against the monster's aura. Just then, a sharp, cold voice slices through the chaos. "Cut the crap," Arthur snaps. He looks legitimately annoyed, stepping up and declaring that these humans are his guests, straight up ordering the beast to back off. He demands to know what the hell this snake is doing here, asking if the oversized reptile magically forgot the absolute laws of this territory. He points out it's trespassing way outside its tribe's borders. Arthur casually tells the snake to mind its own damn business, which just pisses the monster off even more. Pure chaotic energy explodes from the beast as it flexes its divine status. Roaring, it screams, "I am the great serpent." How dare a puny human give orders to an immortal being, but Arthur is absolutely done listening to this villain monologue. Guess somebody needs a reality check. And he throws a single punch that rips the air apart with a massive shockwave. The hit connects dead center on the giant snake, in a blinding flash of crackling blue energy, instantly blasting the surrounding warriors off their feet. Melissa gets thrown to the ground as one of her bodyguards screams her name in total panic. When the dust finally settles, the snake's entire head is just a splattered, bloody mess staining the snow. Arthur cold drops the hardest line, saying some trash only learns their place after a brutal beatdown. Melissa is just left staring, utterly speechless. "Lord Arthur," she whispers, completely shell-shocked by the insane carry she just witnessed, her eyes glowing a deep purple. Arthur doesn't even look back, just tells her he'll be with them in a sec. Right after he finishes taking out the trash, he violently stomps the ground, shattering the earth with pitch-black energy, before launching himself forward at absolute blinding speed. Another massive explosion rocks the frozen plains. Fast forward a few minutes, and Melissa and her butler are absolutely shook. Those hardcore mercenaries are literally on their knees begging Arthur for mercy. Back inside the beat-up carriage, Arthur is super chill. He casually brushes it off, saying he totally gets why they'd side-eye a random stranger. The ride rolls on, and somehow the butler ends up booted outside the carriage. The vibe suddenly shifts. Arthur locks eyes with Melissa, dead serious, and tells her there's one thing he needs to know. Why is a high-class noble like her gambling her life on such a crazy, dangerous mission? She hesitates for a beat, then spills the tea. She's the daughter of a concubine named Beliaka, Lord Kazakh Akasha's second wife. She explains how her mom was just a political pawn tossed aside and stripped of any real power. Clenching her fists, she reveals they're treated like literal servants, carrying the family name with zero respect. That's exactly why she volunteered for this deadly trade run. That actually catches Arthur off guard. Her logic. Someone has to step up and set the standard. A sly smirk creeps onto our boy's face. He flat out calls her smart, insanely ambitious, and just a little bit greedy. Melissa is totally stunned by the call-out. But before she can snap back, the carriage violently jolts again. Someone outside yells that they made it. The crew steps out and their jaws drop. The brutal blizzard is gone, replaced by a massive, vibrant green valley. After thanking Arthur, Melissa casually mentions the trip back should be a breeze once they unload the weapons. Still, she can't shake off his words. They're living rent-free in her head. She spins around, demanding to know what he meant by calling her ambitious. He smirks. Exactly what it sounds like. He sees right through her. He knows her once legendary family is on the verge of collapsing. If she flexes and pulls off what the main house couldn't, she'll secure everyone's loyalty. Then he drops the bomb. Your real endgame is hijacking the whole family, isn't it? Caught red-handed, she owns up to it. He gives her a smug grin, saying the whole rejected heir claiming the throne trope is an absolute classic. Melissa is totally mind-blown by how easily he read her. Remembering his insane strength, a light bulb goes off. She asks if he's ever thought about ditching these frozen wastelands. She straight up invites him to join her crew. He passes for now, claiming he's got some unfinished business to wrap up. Melissa respects the hustle and backs off. Instead, she unclasps the crest from her neck and hands it over as a token of their wild encounter. She tells him, if he ever steps into the real world, just flash that badge to the Akasha family. Arthur happily pockets the loot with a huge grin. They part ways, hoping their paths cross again. He watches her carriage roll down into the lush valley, leaving the freezing snow behind. Flash forward 5 years. Out of nowhere in the endless snow, a highly anticipated system notification pops up. All conditions have finally been met. A massive wave of system alerts floods his vision, confirming the ultimate quest is done. The loot drops are distributed, and then the golden words he's been dying to see flash before his eyes. You are now free to leave the snowfields. Arthur stands right at the edge of the wasteland, totally hyped to dive headfirst into the fantasy world he's been dreaming of. Flashing a confident smirk, he locks his eyes on the horizon. Clean slate. Time to take his very first step into this brand new reality. Surrounded by a vibrant, lush forest, he takes a massive breath, finally soaking in the vibes of this new world. He breathes in the scent of fresh grass, wild beasts, and crisp river water, a total 180 from the frozen hellhole he just escaped. He opens his eyes, grinning from ear to ear. Oh yeah, this is exactly what I'm talking about. Suddenly, his whole mood flips. He whips around, glaring intensely at the distant icy peaks. Screw you, let's never cross paths again, he screams at the top of his lungs. He is officially free. This is it. The hardcore fantasy world he obsessed over for years, a place he legit thought he'd never reach. The grind to get here was an absolute nightmare, but he made it. Now he's about to savor every single second of it. Magic swords, badass dragons, elves, everything he hyped himself up for is right here. That dream of starting over from scratch was the only thing keeping him breathing. Because out there in the freezing snow, just surviving on his own was never going to be enough. As he keeps trekking, a faint glow in the distance catches his eye. A flicker of light. Could it be a town? Humans, finally. He's beyond hyped. An actual real-life village. He cringes, remembering how he used to try chatting up the barbarians back in his territory only to get dead empty stares in return. Man, he missed having a legit conversation. He instantly starts plotting his opening line. Maybe a casual "what's up," or maybe something way more cinematic. In the end, he decides to just play it cool and act normal. Heart pounding, he sprints straight toward the lights. Cut to a dead silent clearing. An ancient elf elder hypes up his squad, declaring this untouched spot their brand new home base. The whole village absolutely erupts. They finally scored their own turf. But hold up, one anxious teen elf steps out of the crowd and asks if this place is actually safe. The elder drops a hard yes without missing a beat, but the kid is still hardcore stressing. Sure, humans can't reach them, but the icy badlands are right next door, and that place is literally crawling with monsters. The elder just brushes it off. Not a single thing has crossed those frozen plains in thousands of years, plus they threw up a massive barrier just in case. He brags that this isn't just any shield, it is ancient. Top-tier elven magic completely cloaks the village, keeping all the creepy crawlies way out of their business. And hey, even if some psycho actually broke through, they still have Her Majesty, and oh boy, she is an absolute baddie. He is 100% positive nothing can touch them. Yeah, he is dead wrong. Cut to Arthur casually strolling through the forest, when he suddenly feels his hand rip right through something weird. It literally feels like tearing through. He freezes, totally weirded out, like, bro, what was that? But then he just hits a quick shrug and keeps on walking. Suddenly, a snap, he stops dead in his tracks, peeking through the tall brush. He spots a tiny girl with long, pointy ears. An elf. His jaw drops. A literal, real-life elf. And he found one this fast. Talk about insane RNG, but the poor kid is completely lost and on the verge of tears, absolutely terrified that she wandered way too far from home. Then, she hears a deep voice right behind her. Her eyes go wide with panic as Arthur leans down and drops a super friendly, "Hey there." The poor girl literally short circuits from pure terror and straight up passes out on the spot. Arthur is just left standing there like a total deer in headlights. He awkwardly catches her limp body. A massive sweat drop slides down his face. He didn't even get a single second to explain himself. And boom, she is out cold. Taking a deep breath, he figures the only logical move is to carry her back to her village. In his head, he is already directing the movie. He returns the lost kid, and they instantly crown him the ultimate savior. Riding that wave of massive main character energy, he strolls right into the elven camp. But spoiler alert, the elves absolutely lose their minds. They start screaming that a filthy human snatched their kid. Dozens of sharp spears are shoved right in his face, and they aggressively demand to know who the hell he is and how he cracked their flawless shield. Welp RIP to the hero plan. The girl's mom shrieks in pure unadulterated horror. The elder elf is practically having a heart attack. No human should ever be able to set foot on their turf. That barrier was hyped up as totally unbreakable. When he sees the massive crack in their magical dome, sheer panic takes over. He screams for the queen, but she is out on patrol. Arthur tries desperately to defuse the vibe, shouting that he is chill, but nobody is listening. A guard roars at him to drop the kid right now or they will end him. The elder's brain is short-circuiting. That barrier was ancient god-tier magic. No cheap parlor trick could ever smash through it. He goes full conspiracy theorist, assuming this was a totally calculated raid and that humans have been tracking them for years. Arthur is just standing there wildly confused. He realizes right on cue, the tiny girl in his arms groggily opens her eyes. He gently sets her down on the grass, softly telling her to run back to her fam. She stares up at his warm, friendly smile, but her traumatized little brain filters, so she lets out a blood-curdling shriek and sprints for her parents. Oof. That rejection hits Arthur right in the feels. Like seriously, is his face actually that scary? He throws his hands up in surrender, telling the crazy mob that he gave the kid back. So obviously he is clearly not the bad guy here, but the elder is totally blind to logic, now that the hostage is out of the crossfire. He orders a full-scale execution. The squad of elven snipers draw back their bowstrings, locking right onto an incredibly confused Arthur. They let loose. A massive wave of glowing magical arrows rains straight down on his head. He just stands there totally flabbergasted by their toxicity. They really refuse to listen to a single word. So much for the fairy tale that elves are sweet tree-hugging pacifists. Out in the wild, it is strictly survival of the fittest. The lethal arrows shower down on him, but Arthur doesn't even blink. The elves go full panic mode, screaming to keep firing, totally convinced his godlike defense has to crack at some point. Okay, yeah, he is officially done with this nonsense. Boom! He unleashes a massive shockwave explosion. It absolutely shreds the elves' front line, launching the arrogant archers flying through the sky like ragdolls. Someone screams to pop a defensive shield, but it is way too late. Massive ancient trees are violently ripped straight out of the dirt, while the traumatized elves are tossed through the air screaming for their lives. When the brutal dust cloud finally clears, the elder elf can only stare in pure shock. Like, what on earth just happened? Standing at the end of a massive glowing crater is Arthur, casually repeating that he is literally not their enemy. He then awkwardly rubs his neck, admitting that maybe he flexed a little too. Suddenly, a blazing phoenix arrow streaks right at him. Boom! The shot zeroes in right on his dome, exploding on impact. The village elder and his crew are left standing there absolutely clueless. Then a crazy, elegant elf woman touches down. Enter Her Royal Highness, the elven hero herself, Marcelia, Queen of the Leaf Clan. She's not playing games, demanding to know what's going down. The elder rushes to snitch, claiming a human just jumped them. Instantly, her face turns ice cold. In her mind, if a human breached their turf, this sanctuary is officially compromised. But then Arthur casually strolls out of the smoke completely untouched, basically begging them to just chill and listen. The elder and the queen are absolutely gagged. Dude just tanked a point-blank ultimate attack and didn't even flinch. Hovering above the queen hits him with a lethal glare. She's completely disgusted by humans and low-key convinced he's here to wipe out her people. She drops her title as the Leaf Clan Queen and immediately notches another arrow. Aiming a blazing, fiery projectile right at his face, she promises he's gonna pay the price for human greed. Arthur is just standing there, utterly lost. Like, bro, we literally speak the same. He figures humans and elves must seriously have some deep-rooted beef. Letting out a massive, heavy sigh, he totally drops the diplomatic approach. Because honestly, sometimes people only want to talk after you humble them a little. The queen lets her arrow fly, electric blue energy crackling everywhere. Yeah, this is definitely not your average shot. The arrow morphs into a massive, roaring spirit beast mid-air. Arthur's response: he just clenches his fist, charging up a frankly ridiculous amount of raw power. One single punch. A shockwave of pure, unfiltered force slams head-on into the beast. The queen is frozen, totally shell-shocked. Arthur's strike didn't just match her attack, it completely obliterated it. And, whoops, he did it again. He totally overdid it by accident. The blast vaporizes her spirit beast and violently yeets the queen straight into the dirt, leaving her completely buried under a mountain of rubble. Our boy awkwardly scratches his cheek, wondering if he should have nerfed himself a bit more. The queen peers up from the debris, her face ghostly pale and absolutely terrified. She literally can't even speak. It finally clicks, this guy's on the level of a literal transcendent being. Why the hell is a monster like him here? Drenched in a cold sweat, she desperately screams for her people to run. The elves hesitate for a second, but she screams again, ordering them to sprint for their lives. The second they take off, she spins back around to face him down, screaming at the top of her lungs that he'll never get what he came for. Arthur is just baffled at this point. He literally just wanted a quick chat, and now the whole situation has spiraled out of control. But she's still not having it. She shuts her eyes, chanting a heavy-duty spell. When her eyes snap open, she unleashes a massive, blinding explosion of pure fire. A colossal blazing bull erupts from a glowing magic circle. And Arthur, his eyes immediately light up like a kid in a candy store. A real summon. It instantly reminds him of those ugly monsters from the frozen wasteland. But this hits totally different. A majestic beast with literal fire for horns. Now that is a legit spirit. This is the exact fantasy world vibe he's been craving. Meanwhile, the queen ruthlessly commands it to wipe out the enemy. But the high-tier fire spirit just grumbles some stuff about. She knows the oldest, beefiest spirits have massive egos. Just getting this guy onto the battlefield was a nightmare. She only bagged this contract because another tribe backed her up, so she strictly orders Piego to hold up his end of the bargain. The blazing spirit slams its heavy hoof into the dirt, hyped and ready to throw down. It casually asks if smoking this human is the only thing on the to-do list. But then, it gets a good look at Arthur and absolutely freezes. Our guy is just standing there dripping in a pitch-black aura, flashing a psycho-terrifying smile. The almighty spirit is shook to its core. Like, is this thing even remotely human? The giant fireball towers over the battlefield, roaring with so much raw power it can barely hold itself back. Arthur is thinking this looks straight out of a manga, and it's finally real life. But before he can even vibe with it, a booming voice echoes, "Human, you have trespassed on our turf." The fireball Piego hits him with a furious death stare, growling that a pathetic human has zero right to demand anything from the races of nature. He threatens to turn him into straight-up ashes. But Arthur, he doesn't even flinch. Honestly, he just looks super confused. Piego doesn't waste another second. With blazing eyes, the beast digs its hooves in, rapidly charging up a lethal amount of energy. Then it launches forward like a massive heat-seeking missile meant to vaporize him. Arthur doesn't step back, he just braces himself for impact. The collision is insanely brutal, shattering the ground beneath them. The shock wave is so intense it physically blows the Elven Queen backward. When she finally looks up, her jaw drops. Arthur literally stopped the charging bull with one hand. Bro just casually grabbed onto a horn and held it dead in its tracks. The massive beast is just stuck there, its entire momentum completely canceled out like it was nothing but a joke. Arthur flashes an ice-cold smirk. Honestly, fighting a giant beast just makes his job way easier. Neon purple energy flares in his eyes as he winds up his fist. His game plan: just beat this thing to a literal pulp. The elf queen is completely frozen in pure terror. Boom! Our barbarian unleashes a devastating right hook. The impact triggers a blinding flash, tearing open a massive trench in the earth. A colossal mushroom cloud towers over the entire forest. Once the smoke clears, the ground is completely obliterated. The queen shrieks as a scorching shockwave rips right toward her. Dust settles and she drops to her knees, staring at the absolute wasteland. She's whispering to herself, trapped in pure disbelief. One punch. One hand. That is all it took to carve out this apocalyptic crater. Shaking, she slowly looks up at Arthur. He is just chilling at the edge, unbothered. Quivering with fear, she bows her head, begging him to spare her people. Arthur drops a truth bomb. He is not the bad guy here. The queen snaps her head up, totally stunned. Like, what is actually going on? Turns out this whole insane battle was just one massive epic misunderstanding. Super embarrassed, she bows and apologizes for jumping to conclusions. She explains they totally mistook him for a slaver when he actually just saved a lost little elf girl. Talk about feeling super guilty. Our MC gets it though. Sketchy humans made her tribe paranoid, even if the whole situation still annoys him. I mean, they straight up did not even let him talk. Still on edge, she double checks that he is definitely not with the poachers. Arthur shrugs it off. Nope, this is literally his first time seeing an elf. He is straight out of the White Desert, a completely elf-free zone. Her jaw drops. The White Desert, he nods, flexing his title. The Ashen Barbarian of the White Desert. Her mind is blown right now. Everyone knows ordinary humans literally cannot survive out there in that wasteland. She anxiously asks if more desert monsters like him might show up. Crossing his arms, Arthur admits it is possible but highly unlikely. That cursed place is locked down by brutal rules that even giant mutant snakes cannot break. The only reason he got out, he triggered a super rare hidden quest that let him bypass the system. It was a one-time glitch in the Matrix. Hearing this, the Queen finally breathes a massive sigh of relief. Next up, Arthur casually asks if that giant spirit she summoned is doing all right. He is low-key sweating, remembering how he just absolutely cleaved that bull beast in half with one punch. She reassures him that the beast is totally fine. It was an ethereal spirit, not a flesh and blood creature. So by knocking it out, Arthur basically just force-quit its connection and sent it back to the spirit realm. Desperate to make amends for her huge mess-up, she offers him literally anything he wants as an apology. That definitely catches Arthur's attention. He immediately asks if non-elves can score spirit contracts too. Her face instantly drops. She admits it is basically impossible since only humans with a crazy deep connection to nature can pull it off. For a brute like him, zero chance. But then a light bulb goes off in her head. If he is dead set on getting a spirit contract, he needs to hit up the Holy Elf. Arthur repeats the name, completely intrigued. It is the absolute holy land of her people, where their actual god lives. If it is going to happen anywhere, it is there. Arthur is hyped. But wait, there is a pretty obvious catch. Would a random human even be allowed inside their most sacred sanctuary? Usually that is a hard no. But with her royal VIP pass, he just might get in. She promises to drop the coordinates for him. The Holy Elf is a literal gold mine for anyone researching their species. She drops the heavy truth though, letting a human near a place more precious than life itself is an insanely massive risk. No elf in their right mind would do this, but she is putting her trust in him. She hands over a glowing crimson crystal. Arthur grabs it, locking in their new alliance. Just a quick heads up though, even if he makes it there, the elven god is definitely going to test his worth. Still, she is absolutely positive he will pass. Wishing him luck, she finally drops her full name, Marcelia Asian Karusha. Flashing a cocky grin, he simply introduces himself as Arthur the Barbarian. Then he violently stomps the ground. The earth shatters under his boots as he launches into the sky like a literal rocket, his eyes glow soaring way above the tree line. He is moving at such insane speeds, he is basically just a blur cutting across the sky in a flash. From a bird's eye view, our guy looks like a falling comet dragging a massive sonic boom right behind him. Meanwhile, cut to the edge of the Miller territory in the Guantra Kingdom. A massive earthquake rattles their fortress, sending guards into total panic mode. They have zero clue what is happening, but they know something is incoming fast. A gigantic object plummets from the clouds, trailing thick smoke, and it is heading straight for them. Boom! A massive shockwave hits the ground as a shadowy figure drops straight through the dust cloud, sticking a perfect superhero landing. The guards freeze instantly. Their blood runs cold. They know exactly who just crashed their party. Arthur just gives them a chill wave. "Nice to meet you guys," he smirks, leaving the guards absolutely shook. Their minds are racing. Was that crazy explosion really just this psycho native? One of the guards squints, getting a closer look. Silver hair. A massive jagged scar ripping across his chest. Suddenly it clicks. Wait. Is this the infamous Silver Barbarian? Arthur takes one tiny step forward and swing, every guard rips their sword out. He immediately throws his hands up. "Whoa, chill out, I come in peace," he chuckles. The head guard isn't buying that bull for a second, barking out, "What the hell do you want?" Arthur doesn't point at the guards. Instead, he points right past them, aiming straight for the massive castle walls. He casually drops that he just wants a little tour of their turf. The guards just blink, utterly bamboozled. Cut to a sketchy interrogation room. A guard squints at him, asking if he's really just passing through. Arthur leans back. "I'd actually love to crash here for a bit," he smiles, dropping his name. The guard immediately demands an ID. Yeah, obviously our boy Arthur doesn't have one. But then it hits him, the shiny emblem Melissa slipped him back in the lounge. He slams it on the table. "Will this do the trick?" The guard's jaw practically hits the floor. Arthur flexes that it's from the Akasha family, a massive deal apparently. The guard instantly spots the crest. We're talking about an elite merchant empire from another kingdom. Still, the guard is sweating. It looks legit, but fact-checking this with a foreign nation, major headache. Finally, he caves. But obviously, there's a catch. Arthur has to prove he's not a walking hazard. The test, super basic. Team up with 3 randoms, form a squad, and wipe out a dungeon. Honestly, that sounds way too easy. Arthur just smirks. Say less, he agrees. But wait, there's more. They have to report everything that happened afterward. Arthur clocks it instantly. It's a genius trap to make newbies babysit each other. The guard flinches, totally creeped out that this meathead figured it out so fast. Are you actually a barbarian, he stammers? Arthur puffs out his chest proudly. The guard is absolutely speechless. He totally thought barbarians were just brain-dead gym bros. Spooked, he quickly wraps up the paperwork. Meanwhile, back in the waiting room, we meet the next squad member, a totally self-proclaimed paladin. Alessandro Tyrannus. He's whining hard, crying that raiding a dungeon with some filthy pickpocket rat is just rock bottom. The thief, Kasan Hark, catches the stray and fires back. What's wrong, old man, mad? 'Cause another thief hustled you. Tyrannus absolutely loses it. You little bastard, he roars while Kasan just cackles. Kasan points straight at his busted rusty armor, roasting him. Were you ever even a real paladin, bro? He doubles down, calling Alessandro just another broke loser like him. The paladin is literally shaking with rage. But then Hark pushes it too far and mocks his mighty name. That's it. Tyrannus snaps and rips out his sword. Kasan just grins, flipping out a venom-dripping dagger. Think that junk armor will save you, clang. Their weapons violently crash. Bam, a third player jumps right into the crossfire. A literal nun steps up, begging them to chill. Meet Hayes, a cleric of Kalusha. She's already face-palming, wondering how she's supposed to survive a dungeon with these 2 absolute bozos. There's still 1 more party member missing, and honestly, she's terrified of who it might be. Right on cue, the massive doors creak open. The guard announces their final teammate. A hulking shadow steps through, purple eyes glowing in the dark. Talk about an epic entrance. The entire room drops dead silent. They are completely paralyzed by how insanely massive this guy is. Then Arthur shatters the tension with a goofy giant grin. Are you guys my new squad? Everyone is low-key terrified. Alessandro's brain is just screaming he is huge. Hayes is praying he's actually human. And Kasan, he's just drowning in the sheer aura. The guard quickly bails, leaving them to awkwardly break the ice. Completely blind to the heavy vibes, Arthur happily starts the intros. Hey there, I'm Arthur, I'm a barbarian. He stares down Kasan, who is literally sweating buckets, stammering out that he's just a petty thief. Next up, the armor dude puffs his chest proudly, declaring himself Paladin Alessandro Tyrannus. Our boy Arthur catches on to that instantly. Oh, so you use holy magic, Arthur asks. Tyrannus starts sweating bullets, awkwardly admitting that yeah, normally he would. But I'm a special kind of paladin, so I can't. Finally, the nun steps up nervously, introducing herself as Hayes, a cleric of Kalusia. Arthur's face drops. A cleric. Why is everyone side-eyeing her? Blushing hard, she whispers that her deity is literally the god of lies and deceit. So yeah, 0 trust points from the public. Arthur just nods. Ah, gotcha. Dead silence follows. A paladin with 0 holy magic. And a priestess low-key linked to lies. What a chaotic squad. Luckily, the guard rolls back up, asking if everyone is good to go. They trade side-eyes, and literally nobody is vibing with this. Hayes and Kasan look absolutely sick to their stomachs, probably questioning what they did to deserve this absolute mess. After a quick trek, their guide suddenly halts. He drops the news they have made it. Our guy stares straight ahead, visibly shook. The crew steps into a creepy forest clearing, coming face to face with the gaping mouth of the dungeon. Arthur shoots Kasan a look, asking for the game plan, which instantly makes the dude tense up like a board. Kasan awkwardly stammers out a sir, but Arthur just chuckles, telling him to chill out since they are teammates now. Sweating bullets but trying to hide it, Kasan lays out a basic strategy. Fighters hit the front lines, the rogue sweeps for traps, and the cleric hangs back to drop some support magic. Arthur instantly greenlights the idea. Meanwhile, Kasan already looks like he heavily regrets rolling out with such a sketchy game plan. Our lead struts to the front, pausing right before the threshold. The squad dives into the dungeon, swallowed by the freezing pitch-black cave. Hayes whispers that the heavy darkness is giving her major creeps, but the rogue is stressing over something way worse. The total 0 trap zone is throwing up massive red flags for him. Then he spots the real threat lurking. He scrambles to stop Arthur, frantically warning him about monsters nearby. Peeking down, he spots scattered bones littering the floor. The rogue's brain clicks instantly. This was not some basic little trial. It was a brutal setup meant to completely wipe them out. Arthur, though, he just looks mildly intrigued. Wait, skeletons. Kasan frantically explains, these things are absolute tanks. Even if you hack them into pieces, they just keep coming. Plus, their bones are jacked up by the dungeon's raw mana. The threat level just spiked hard, so he starts barking out orders. Yelling at Hayes to charge up her buffs, he commands the warrior to hold the line and warns Arthur to brace himself. Arthur casually drops an "I am ready," making Kassan feel like some top-tier master tactician. Then our boy takes one single step forward, and that tiny motion straight up wakes a skeleton from its slumber. He watches in pure amazement as the bony creep jerks to life with a nasty rattling sound. The rest of the squad is low-key hyperventilating, locking into battle stances as the skeleton warrior charges Arthur, hoisting a massive sword to strike. But Arthur just casually swats it away like a pesky fly and throws one single punch. That solo hit absolutely vaporizes the monster. It crumbles instantly into a glowing pile of bone dust. The rest of the crew is left completely paralyzed in shock. Arthur flashes a cocky grin, casually noting, "So smashing the skull actually works." Kassan looks mentally shattered. That was not what he meant at all. What Arthur just pulled off should have been physically impossible. Dungeon-buffed skeletons are definitely not supposed to shatter like cheap glass. You normally have to hack them down over and over again. The rogue knew Arthur was cracked, but not this insanely overpowered. Now they are all silently questioning if this absolute beast of a man is even human. Arthur just pops his knuckles and smirks, hyped to push deeper. The rest of them quickly scramble right behind him. He tells them there is no need to rush, but his terrified teammates immediately blurt out a synchronized "Yes, sir." At this point, they are all sharing one brain cell. Do not die in this hellhole. A little later, Arthur slams the brakes, looking super confused. His foot kicks something hard. The whole squad freezes cold as they spot another skull on the dirt, and a second skeleton drags itself up. The team watches in pure, unadulterated horror. Round 2 has officially kicked off. But instead of stressing, Arthur pivots back to them, asking for a quick favor. He wants to solo every single skeleton himself. Apparently, he has got a little experiment in mind. They nod fiercely without a second thought. Arthur shoots them a quick thanks. His glowing purple eyes lock in as he stalks toward the undead threat. Meanwhile, the rest of the crew wisely keeps their distance. All they can do is watch and wonder what insane stunt he is plotting. He walks right up to it, studying the thing like it is a science fair project he is trying to decode. The skeleton swings hard, but Arthur literally catches the massive strike with just 2 fingers. He snaps the blade right in half, flexing hard like he is, asking, "What is your next move, buddy?" But that does not faze the brainless creature, which lunges right back in for a follow-up hit. And instead of dodging, Arthur just snatches its bony wrist midair. Flashing a dark smirk, he taunts, "So, how about this?" A brutal crunch echoes out as he completely pulverizes the skeleton's hand, letting the pieces drop to the dirt. He literally watches the destruction with genuine twisted. The skeleton pauses, almost looking confused by its crushed-up hand, before letting out a roar and wildly swinging its broken sword with the other arm. This dude literally tosses his weapon and snatches it mid-air with his good hand to keep swinging. Honestly, pretty impressive for a literal pile of bones. Arthur's actually hyped, noticing the quick hand swap. The skelly lunges for round 2 but gets instantly shut down. Cause Arthur grabs that wrist too and just absolutely rips its other hand clean off, sending the bony freak stumbling backward. But yo, this guy has zero chill. It refuses to quit. It straight up charges, and using its own detached arm as a club, Arthur's mind is blown. This thing is weaponizing its own body parts, which means this mob actually has some big brain energy. Meanwhile, the rest of the squad looks like they're gonna throw up. This is way too hardcore for them. They're basically paralyzed, just standing there shaking like leaves, while Arthur absolutely dismantles this monster, flexing pure unhinged barbarian energy. Then, crunch, he finishes the job. The skull hits the dirt but is somehow still twitching and clicking its jaws. Arthur just mumbles, "Huh, weird." The thing's still going with just a head. One heavy stomp squashes it for good. And just like that, Arthur's whole vibe flips. Right back to chill and friendly. He casually says, "My bad," for the hold-up Kazan, who is currently terrified for his life. Panics and stammers, "No problem at all." Arthur nods, deciding it's time to keep pushing. So they hit the road. Once more. The squad nervously nods along and trails behind him. After a bit of grinding, they hit a massive towering staircase. Floor 2 unlocked. The vibe up here is super heavy, and honestly the party looks completely wiped out from the climb. The thief nervously pipes up, "Hey, can we take a quick breather?" To his massive shock, Arthur actually says yes. The rogue is practically in tears as the squad completely collapses onto the floor. Our MC just sits there quietly observing them. Then he finally breaks the ice. "I've got a question," he admits, playing the clueless card. Hayes, looking a bit thrown off, tells him that asking questions is a green flag. "What's on your mind?" she asks. And Arthur drops an actually 200 IQ question. Why let a hardcore dungeon like this exist right next to a literal village? Hayes explains that the mobs, Usually just camp inside, and if any manage to wander out, they get instantly clapped. Kazan chimes in, saying dungeons are just a normal part of their world system. They spawn as random caves or giant towers, and weirdly enough, they love to pop up near heavily populated zones. Hayes adds that whenever one spawns, the local lord just throws money at mercs, like them to carry the raid. Arthur tilts his head. So does that mean these dungeons never actually spawn directly inside the towns? Just a safe distance away, Alessandro nods, hearing that our boy's eyes literally light up. Then he hits them with the million-dollar question. Do you get loot for clearing it out? The nun confirms it, saying, a mid-tier dungeon like this means the boss is guaranteed to drop some insane high-tier loot. A super menacing smirk creeps onto Arthur's face. He realizes this world operates exactly like a video game. The cleric catches him mumbling, but he instantly brushes it off, acting like he's just thinking out loud. He swiftly pivots. Then he drops a lore question that totally stuns the entire party. So who actually built these dungeons? The nun repeats that they're just natural occurrences, but Arthur isn't buying that for a second. He points out the crazy coincidence of them spawning right next to towns. It's almost like they're designed as bait to lure people in, using danger and epic loot. For something supposedly natural, this feels way too calculated. That logic hits the little nun like a truck. She's totally speechless, whispering that she never even stopped to question it. Kazan is also reeling. He always assumed barbarians were just brain-dead meatheads, but Arthur's deep-diving questions prove otherwise. Now Kazan is seriously wondering, is Arthur even remotely close to a normal barbarian? That existential crisis gets cut short when Arthur cheerfully shouts, all right, everybody rested up, snapping back to reality. The squad frantically scrambles up, claiming they're ready to roll. So they plunge even deeper into the dark dungeon zone. Suddenly, Arthur slams the brakes, looking genuinely hyped. Dude just spotted a massive treasure chest. Kazan explains, it's bonus dungeon loot. If anyone can actually crack it open. Arthur just turns and bluntly asks if he can pick the lock. Kazan completely freezes up. Arthur's logic is flawless, it's a locked chest, and Kazan is literally the rogue of the party. Arthur points out that this is straight up his job description. But the rogue immediately starts sweating bullets, full-on panicking. In his head, he's violently screaming that, if bro actually had the skills to crack a chest like this, he wouldn't be stuck rotting in some trash-tier dungeon. The thief is literally sweating bullets, completely terrified to hit our OP protagonist with a massive reality check. Especially not while the big guy is staring at him with pure puppy dog hope. Kazan's anxiety instantly spirals to the absolute worst-case scenario. He pictures Arthur's friendly smile snapping into a dead-eyed glare right before he calls him useless and crushes his skull like a grape. So, faking a shaky laugh, our thief promises to give it a shot. Inside, he is absolutely losing his mind as he drops to his knees by the loot. Arthur casually leans in to watch. Convinced to fail means instant death, Kazan desperately scrambles his brain for any lockpicking tricks. Tricks he only ever watched legit adventurers use back in the day. Back when he was just a glorified pack mule. Hands shaking like a leaf, he starts fiddling with the mechanism. With Arthur looming over his shoulder like a raid boss, the thief knows this is make or break. His actual survival rides on, clutching up right now. He is an inch away from a total mental breakdown when... click. The chest pops open. Our silver-haired MC just stares super confused, wondering why Kazan is vibrating like a smartphone. Suddenly, the tension breaks and the thief completely loses it, bursting into ugly sobs. Choking on his tears, he stammers that he actually popped the lock. The cleric is visibly shook, claiming only top-tier rogues pull that off. She hypes him up as a total genius. Even Arthur looks genuinely impressed and drops some heavy praise, leaving the thief in absolute disbelief. Bro always thought he was grinding at maximum effort, but now, he is seriously questioning if he just never actually locked in before. While the dude is having a full-blown existential crisis, Arthur steps up asking what the loot is worth. Hayes calculates it could easily fund a family, living like absolute royalty for one whole month. Hearing those numbers, our MC smirks and immediately appoints Kazan as the official loot manager. Hyped up, the rogue dives right in. Plunging into the chest, he yanks out a diamond-crusted goblet that is easily worth more than his entire life. But then Arthur randomly calls out his name. Kazan lets out this high-pitched shriek of pure panic. Completely clueless to the terror he just caused, the silver-haired MC just asks if he cut his hand or needs some help. Kazan frantically waves him off, leaving the rest of the squad staring in absolute confusion. Shrugging off the super awkward vibe, the party pushes deeper into the cavern. Out of nowhere, the thief throws his hand up, signaling a hard stop. Undead incoming. Arthur casually counts out 4 skeletons, and deadpan announces he will solo 3 of them himself. The whole squad freezes up. Did he really just say that? Clutching his loot bag like a kid on Christmas, Arthur excitedly tells them to handle the leftover mob. Reality smacks Kazan. This is a real life or death brawl. Alejandro just gives a grim nod, locking in. The second Arthur steps into aggro range, the bone piles on the dirt start violently shaking and clattering together. The skeletons piece themselves back together into full forms. Kazan is absolutely paralyzed as all four enemies stand tall, their eye sockets glowing an eerie neon blue. With a hollow, silent screech, the protagonist finally drops the signal. It is go time. Kazan blitzes in, first blades drawn and ready for blood. He catches one skeleton completely off guard. But right before his strike connects, Arthur aggressively intercepts. He literally snatches up 3 skeletons at once, trapping them in a bone-crushing bear hug. He yells at the team to back off, those 3 are his prey. Left solo, the 4th skeleton aggressively swings its sword down, but Alejandro is perfectly positioned. He tanks the heavy strike with his shield, sending out a massive metallic clang. Kazan immediately follows up. He leaps at the monster with twin daggers flashing while Hayes' eyes glow as she spams her confusion spell. Capitalizing on the stun, Alejandro brings down his glowing broadsword in one devastating heavy cleave. The skeleton shatters into dust. But wait, they totally missed the core. The bones snap back together for round 2. Meanwhile, watching his team hustle, our protagonist just smiles. He admits that seeing a low-level party combo their main skills up close is actually super rare and pretty impressive. Then, without breaking a sweat, he literally pulverizes the 3 skeletons trapped in his arms into powder. Shaking off the bone dust, he casually announces his side is clear, meaning he gets to just kick back and enjoy the show while his team braces for Wave 2. It instantly clicks for the whole squad. This absolute unit of a barbarian is treating this like an audition. He is testing them. The final skeleton honestly looks confused by how pumped up they suddenly are. Hayes grits her teeth, knowing the rules show weakness, and you get wiped. Alejandro charges in with a vicious battle cry, completely overwhelming the undead mob as the entire team unloads their attacks all at once. Finally, the cracked skull hits the dirt. With the fight cleared, the exhausted squad collapses to the floor, violently gasping for air. Arthur casually studies his gasping teammates, thinking back to the elite adventurers from the White Snowfield. Turns out those guys must have been insanely cracked after all, because this current squad basically almost wiped trying to handle just one basic skeleton. Catching their breath, they push on to the next floor. Sure, there are more mobs spawning, but with Arthur hard carrying, they are basically paperweights. Eventually, they hit the boss room. Dead ahead at the end of the corridor, a terrifying figure in pitch-black armor is chilling on a stone throne. Yep, it is a skeletal knight. The nun instantly starts shaking like a leaf. Arthur, totally unbothered, casually asks if this bony dude is any different from the lower-tier mobs. They just wiped out. Her response is super grim. Yeah, he is insanely buffed, cracked with a sword and shield, and hits right at knight tier. They literally have 0 chance of winning. Hayes is completely terrified, with 0 clue how they could ever clear this boss. So Arthur drops the question, what happens if they completely fail and just dip? The cleric explains they would need official permission from the territory first. But honestly, if bailing out makes total sense, it is no big deal. Our main guy flashes a little smirk, saying that actually sounds pretty fair. Meanwhile, the Death Knight just stays glued to his throne, leaking out this insanely heavy, suffocating aura. Deep down in the final boss room, this skeletal menace waits completely wrapped in a glowing purple death aura. It slowly stands up, totally ready to brawl with Arthur. But Arthur just smirks, low-key amused that a pile of bones can even hold its shape. Without missing a single beat, the undead boss goes absolutely all out. He raises his massive broadsword to completely crush him. Next second, he launches into the air, blasting out a massive shockwave of pure energy. Hayes panics and throws up a glowing golden barrier, but it instantly gets absolutely shredded. Alessandro violently dives in, slamming his heavy shield down to tank the hit for the squad. Even with that clutch save, the entire squad gets blasted straight backward like ragdolls. For a split second, they are totally and utterly outmatched. Even our main guy looks genuinely shocked. Alessandro is completely mind-blown by the sheer raw damage from just one single strike. Treating them like literal trash, the boss violently charges forward to finish the raid. But this time, Arthur steps up. He counters the attack with an absolutely devastating right hook, sending a massive shockwave ripping through the boss room. The Death Knight gets sent flying, and gets completely vaporized in one single hit. The rest of the party just blankly stares, their brains totally lagging. Arthur casually brushes off his hands, and just casually asks if that was literally it. After basically one-shotting the boss, the raid group spots the real loot, a massive glowing treasure chest. Arthur turns directly to Kassan and tells him to crack it open. The guy immediately starts sweating. The lock level is way out of his league. When the rogue admits they might have to abandon the loot, our main man literally just punches the chest wide open. The paladin and the rest of the crew are totally speechless. Once again, Arthur just flexes a smile. He casually drops that this way is way faster and orders Kassan to scoop up all the loot. The rogue is too absolutely flabbergasted to process why Arthur even asked him to pick the lock when he could have just smashed it to pieces from the start. With the entire dungeon cleared, the squad finally walks out of the dark cave and the entrance instantly collapses right behind them. Kassan quickly explains that scoring a perfect clear literally wipes the dungeon off the map, which totally means that after all that, there was absolutely no hidden secret room. That just makes Arthur smile wider. He casually drops that a secret boss room would have been pretty hype too. Back at the main city gate, the guard is totally shocked to see them back so fast. Bracing for the worst news, he nervously asks how the raid went. Arthur flashes him a massive hyped-up thumbs up, claiming it was a super satisfying run. The guard kicks off the standard checkpoint screening, pulling each party member aside for a solo interview. He directly asks the tiny nun if they should actually let the barbarian stay, and after a tense pause, she drops a yes. This right here is the guard's actual job, hard filtering out crazy threats. But both the rogue and Alessandro completely vouch for our main guy. They swear that despite his absolutely cracked strength, he never laid a finger on them. The guard quickly realizes that Arthur is definitely no basic run-of-the-mill barbarian, besides rocking those ridiculously hot and shredded muscles, obviously. When our overpowered hero gets interrogated, he literally just hypes up his teammates, calling them a super reliable squad. That heavily trips up the guard, since forcing total randoms into a party basically never ends this well. Totally sold, he finally clears him to enter the city, though he drops a heavy warning to not start any drama. Then he hands over the official dungeon clear reward, a super heavy bag of gold coins. Normally, the corrupt guards would just pocket the loot, but this time he actually hands it straight over. Our barbarian happily snatches it up and announces they are splitting it completely evenly 4 ways. The rest of the crew frantically tries to refuse, knowing they got totally carried. But Arthur stubbornly insists the loot gets shared fairly. With the cash settled, he super happily suggests they go out for celebratory drinks. The other 3 force the most awkward, painful smiles and agree to tag along, but the literal second he is completely out of earshot. They are basically sobbing, desperately begging to be set free from this absolute nightmare of a carry. Watching the squad walk off, the guard deeply processes what just went down. A random barbarian who literally one-shot a Death Knight boss. His damage output is absolutely unhinged, easily hitting Knight tier class. Maybe even completely beyond that. This guy is definitely no basic mob clearer. He is a literal legend, completely off the charts, having totally made up his mind about that. This guard instantly knows he's way above his pay grade, so he scrambles to alert his boss. Cut to a massive estate later that night. A seriously intimidating dude sits alone, illuminated only by flickering candlelight. A heavy knock shatters the dead silence. From his throne, a deep voice commands the visitor to step inside. The city guard shuffles in, bowing awkwardly as he approaches the throne to address his lord. Marcus Miller, the big boss of the Miller domain in the Gehenna Kingdom, finally looks up from his paperwork and demands to know what's up. The guard captain stiffens up and totally drops the bomb. A barbarian just spawned in their territory. Marcus snaps back. And you actually let him stay. Sweating bullets, the captain stammers out that he figured the guy wouldn't cause any major drama. Miller isn't buying it. He demands the actual truth, forcing the captain to finally spill the tea. This random guy is insanely overpowered, like strong enough to solo an entire kingdom. Okay, now Miller is hooked. He leans forward, totally intrigued, and asks, exactly how strong? The answer is absolutely wild. This barbarian literally one-shot a skeleton knight. That actually shocks Miller because a skeleton knight is definitely not some low-level mob. You usually need a whole squad of pro hunters to take one down, and this dude wiped it out in a blink. Knowing the guy is just a barbarian, Marcus is heavily doubting this whole story. He grills the captain. Is this brute seriously a top-tier warrior? Drenched in sweat, the captain admits he probably is, maybe even higher. This is literally a ruler's worst nightmare. Having some wild, unknown powerhouse roaming free in his territory. Big yikes. Miller decides to face the music head-on. Bring him here. The captain straight up panics, asking if he's absolutely sure. But honestly, Miller has a point. Letting a ticking time bomb wander around unchecked is just asking to get wrecked. So he wants to vibe check the guy himself. The captain warns him it's super risky, but Miller just smirks and gestures into the shadows behind his throne. No need to stress. He's got the ultimate insurance policy. He turns to his Shadow Knight and asks for his take. The knight flexes his fist, dripping with massive ego. To him, Arthur is nothing but a trash-tier barbarian who got super lucky. After training under absolute sword legends, he sees the guy as nothing more than a bug to squash. That level of confidence is exactly what Marcus wanted to hear. He drops the order to bring him in, saying he'll handle the situation personally. Meanwhile, our supposed scary brute is busy absolutely demolishing a banquet, going crazy at an all-you-can-eat buffet. His new party members are just staring at him in dead silent horror. Our main character, totally clueless. He slams his massive mug on the table, hyped about how crazy good the food is. He's treating, so they better dig in. They awkwardly chuckle, completely terrified. Then he straight up puts Alessandro on the spot, asking if he's really if you're so holy, where was all that flashy power back in the dungeon? Alessandro immediately starts sweating bullets again, frantically explaining that he's still a newbie in training, so his divine powers haven't actually awakened yet. Arthur bluntly tells him that totally sucks. The guy definitely doesn't know how to sugarcoat things. Next, he turns to Heiss, asking if she really worships Kalosha and if there's a temple nearby. Heise awkwardly explains that since her goddess literally rules over lies and deception, they don't exactly have shiny temples lying around. Then she quickly flips the script to ask the real burning question: how overpowered is he really? The other two instantly perk up, desperate to know. Arthur just stares blankly back at them, with a literal chicken bone dangling from his mouth. He shrugs, saying he has zero clue since he just spawned in this world. Then he asks how tough a skeleton knight is supposed to be anyway. Heise explains that a second-rate warrior would get absolutely clapped by one. Only a top-tier fighter could maybe pull off a win like he did. He casually wonders out loud if that only makes him second-rate. Suddenly, a shaky voice interrupts. Excuse me. It's the tavern owner, terrified, awkwardly announcing that they're closing up for the night. The shop owner is practically begging to get this absolute beast out of his store. Arthur happily agrees, casually dropping an invite to hang out later. The other three sync up perfectly, rattling off lame excuses before absolutely booking it. He just waves them off with a breezy, "Catch you guys next time." Meanwhile, that trio is definitely praying they never cross paths with him again. Finally, solo, he scores a room and completely faceplants onto the mattress. To him, this feels like a 5-star resort. He is just hyped that the dungeon loot was fat enough to cover the bill. After surviving that brutal frozen wasteland, even a scratchy mattress feels like absolute heaven. Then his mind drifts to his next move. He has finally escaped the wild and is totally ready to vibe with the real world. His bucket list is basically every adventurer's dream: checking out the Elf Kingdom, scoping out the Magic Tower, and hitting up the capital, all the iconic tourist spots. He knocks out dreaming about it, only to get jolted awake the next morning by some aggressive pounding on his door. Dragging himself up, he swings it open to find the exact same nervous guard captain from the castle. Arthur stands there totally shirtless and just grunts a confused, "Huh." The poor captain nearly jumps out of his skin, then awkwardly stammers out his message: the Lord wants to see him. So the big boss of this whole territory wants a private one-on-one. Naturally, Arthur flashes a grin and instantly agrees. He just grabs a shirt while the guard stands there sweating bullets. This definitely screams trouble. Strolling through the town, Arthur is absolutely eating up the scenery. He had only seen the place at night, so this is his first real daylight tour. He flashes the restless guard a massive grin and gives a thumbs up, totally vibing with this whole fantasy city aesthetic. The captain looks like he wants the earth to swallow him whole. He just focuses on getting this escort, avoiding eye contact at all costs. Finally, they roll up to the main hall. The captain announces he brought the Barbarian. The massive doors swing open, and Miller waves them inside. Arthur struts right in like he is getting the ultimate VIP treatment. Miller extends a hand, introducing himself as Marcus, the lord of these lands, and Arthur actually shakes it. Then he pulls off a polite, slight bow before formally dropping his own name. That practically short-circuits Marcus's brain. A barbarian bowing. That simply does not compute. In his world, barbarians bow to absolutely no one. He braced himself for a feral savage, not a polite dude. Swallowing his shock, Miller notes that Arthur actually has some manners after all, motioning for him to take a seat. Arthur scopes out the room, genuinely impressed by the fancy setup. But then something else catches his eye. A heavily armored knight is posted up right there. Arthur is instantly hooked. He is buzzing with hype to see a real-life fantasy knight up this close. But the knight catches that intense stare and totally mistakes it for pure bloodlust. He can't believe the nerve of this guy throwing killer vibes right in front of the Lord. Pissed off, the knight immediately grips his sword hilt. Before things pop off, Miller shuts it down, saying he just wants to ask a couple of quick questions. Arthur casually sips his tea and tells him to shoot. The Lord leads with the heavy hitter. Where is he from? Arthur smirks and drops a cryptic flex. The coldest place. A world buried in white. That line hits Miller and his knight like a truck. He is talking about the mythical white snowfield. Now Miller knows for a fact he is sitting across from the legendary Barbarian. Miller admits it is a lot to take in, but Arthur just shrugs. Believe it or not, that is on him. So the Lord pivots. He straight up asks how strong Arthur actually is trying to gauge. If this guy is going to be a massive threat, Arthur shuts it down, saying that is the wrong question since he doesn't even know the power scaling of this world yet. Miller and his Then Marcus pitches a simple test, a sparring match against his knight. With some sweet loot just for showing up. Arthur's eyes instantly light up at that. Miller quickly adds that it won't be a fight to the death. Flashing a grin, he is totally in. His instant yes throws Marcus off, but Arthur is just genuinely hyped. A chance to throw hands with a real-life magic knight. Say less. Miller just clenches his fist, thinking barbarians really are just meatheads. After agreeing to throw down, they instantly spawn in a massive arena with Miller watching from the VIP box. Down below, our MC and the knight square up. The knight is dead serious while our guy, he just looks hyped. The boss drops the green light and lays down one rule: no catching bodies. The bell rings. The knight draws his blade, bragging that Arthur should feel honored to witness his technique. Arthur hits him with a casual, "Yeah, I'd like that," which absolutely triggers the knight. Taking that as total disrespect, the guy decides to just crush him and flex the level gap. A massive green aura explodes out of his body. He taunts Arthur, asking what his next move is before swinging hard and launching 3 massive energy blades right at him. Our silver-haired boy just looks up totally lost. 3 flying swords. He is clueless. Miller stares at Arthur and Arthur stares right back. At first he thinks it is a cheap magic trick, but nope, those glowing blades are completely real. So this is what they call swordsmanship. Arthur thinks to himself. The knight's ego goes through the roof, trash-talking that dodging is all our MC can do. But right before the kill shot connects, Arthur casually flicks his finger, and the sword shatters into a million pieces. Right on the spot, the knight completely freezes. Before he can even process the glitch in the matrix, Arthur casually waves a hand and deletes the attack. Then he speed blitzes the gap in a literal blink, grabs the knight by the chest plate, and crumples the heavy armor like it is cheap tin foil. With one brutal yeet, he sends the fully armored knight flying across the entire arena. Watching from above, Marcus Miller is absolutely shook. The knight crashes hard, carving out a massive crater from just one single hit. The Lord literally cannot compute that kind of raw power. Little Arthur just smiles like it was a light warm-up and asks, "Are we done here?" Marcus needs a hot second to reboot his brain before quietly whispering yes, but in his head, the gears are spinning. One-shotting a top-tier knight is completely broken. A barbarian with this much juice could literally shake up the entire world. So the boss decides it is time to call in the big guns, the Swordmaster. He wonders out loud if the guy even made it to town yet, and if this crazy T would grab his attention. Right on cue, a voice drops out of nowhere. Did someone say, "Attention"? A window pops open, revealing an old dude rocking green robes. Marcus looks at him, sighing that his entrance vibes are as weird as ever. The old man just chuckles it off, joking that everyone needs a little entertainment in their lives. Meet Swordmaster Kane. And no, not Harry Kane from Bayern Munich. Anyway, moving on, he wants the full scoop on what just went down. Miller instantly stands up and bows respectfully. That alone proves how much of a VIP this old guy is. After that, we cut to the knight recovering in a hospital bed. Bro is clearly going through it after getting humbled. The door swings open and Miller steps in to check on his stats. The knight wakes up in a full panic, spamming apologies for choking the fight so hard. But old Kane cuts him right off. "Do not apologize to him. Apologize to me." Boom, plot twist. Kane is actually the knight's sensei. But here's the crazy part. The armor was totally demolished, but the dude inside did not take a single point of damage. That proves this barbarian was not just some brainless brute swinging wildly. He held back with perfect microcontrol just to spare the knight's life. That level of pinpoint accuracy puts him in a totally different league from regular knights. We are talking superhuman tier. Hearing that both Marcus and the knight look like they just saw a ghost, Miller asks how this barbarian stacks up against Kane, and the old man just scoffs. Please, he is a swordmaster. Pure unga-bunga strength means absolutely nothing to him. But then Miller drops a weird fact. Arthur flexed all that crazy power, but did not leak a single drop of aura. Marcus connects the dots, guessing Arthur must have spawned from the terrifying white snowfield that makes Kane freeze up. He knows the lore of what lives out there. Or maybe WHO lives out there. Could Arthur be a heteromorph? Something that is not even entirely human. A literal creature walking among them in plain sight. But he quickly shoots down that theory. If the kid was an actual monster, the knight would have been turned into pink mist on the spot. Still, one massive question remains. Why would someone from the edge of the map pull up to civilization right now? He brushes it off, mumbling some vague stuff about the Emperor and his weird side quests. He tells the Lord not to sweat the details, pivoting his focus completely. Wait, this absolute unit of a barbarian is still hanging around. The Lord nods. Hooked, the governor decides he needs to see this mystery guy with his own eyes. Meanwhile, our guy Arthur is chilling outside, chatting up a guard, totally oblivious to the hype building around him. The guard asks about his next move, since he already bagged that sweet bounty cash. And Miller gave him the green light to do whatever our silver-haired dude figures. Scoring an official ID is priority number one. It would make traveling a whole lot smoother. The guard lays out two options. Number one, bag a heavyweight sponsor to back him up. Or number two, dive into the mercenary life. If he grinds out enough rep there, the guild can legally verify his identity. The catch is, most rookie mercs end up running boring fetch quests. Looking at an absolute beast like Arthur, the guard thinks snatching a rich sponsor is the ultimate play. Arthur literally could not care less. The second he hears the words mercenaries taking quests and hunting monsters, he is 100% sold. Flexing a massive ear-to-ear grin, he demands to know where to sign up. The guard's brain totally short-circuits for a second before stammering out that there is a guild hall right down the street. Take me there, our boy demands, flashing a blindingly hyped smile, and the guard instantly caves. But reality check, the mercenary lifestyle isn't some glamorous hero trope. It is the absolute bottom of the food chain. Even stacked adventurers end up wiping in dungeons or doing sketchy black ops for snobby nobles. So the bottom tier of mercs, they are gritty, nasty, and totally unhinged. Right now, a full-blown tavern brawl is popping off in the guild hall, and nobody is stepping in to stop it. The rest of the crowd is literally just standing around throwing bets on who catches the knockout. Behind the counter, a pink-haired receptionist casually asks her coworker if today's batch of rookies has any potential. Rosa Milano, a green-eyed blonde who looks totally over it, drops a massive sigh. Every single one of them is a total weirdo. The current roster is a mess: an edgy fallen holy knight, a sketchy pickpocket, and a hardcore nun praying to some seriously suspicious god. Her bestie looks super bummed out while Milano vents that absolutely zero normal humans ever walk through those doors. Plus, the resident meatheads just keep wrecking the lobby. She starts daydreaming out loud about a Prince Charming sweeping in to rescue her from this dump. Right on cue, the heavy front doors swing open. Rosa peers up and freezes as a colossal mountain-sized shadow completely swallows her desk. Yeah, so much for that Prince Charming. It is Arthur smiling like an absolute maniac while scanning the total chaos. So this is the famous guild hall. Instantly, the brutal fistfight hits pause, and the entire room goes dead silent. You could hear a pin drop as every single person stares in pure shock. Bro is a straight-up barbarian. Our boy, completely blind to the terrifying aura he is projecting, slams his massive hands on the desk and cheerfully announces he is here to join the squad. Rosa is basically malfunctioning, stammering out why someone like him would ever. She nervously explains it is doable, but he is going to have to grind like crazy for it. Also, the sign-up fee is 5 silver coins. He drops his name, then casually hits her with a, "Yeah, I have no clue how old I am." The blonde just panic guesses a number and scribbles it down. Seconds later, the paperwork clears, and she slides his shiny new merc tag across the counter. Arthur snatches it up and instantly demands a quest. He is ready to pop off right now, so she nervously slides over the pathetic excuse for a quest board that noobs get. He stares blankly at the parchment. Wait, is this literally it? F-rank jobs are basically just glorified chores. Picking weeds, scrubbing out creepy basements, unclogging toxic sewers. Not exactly epic boss fights. Rosa starts sweating bullets. Barbarians are notorious for having massive egos, so slapping him with peasant work might actually trigger a bloodbath. Just as she frantically tries to justify the ranking system, Arthur jams a massive finger onto the paper. "I'll take this one." Rosa blinks, completely stunned. He just locked in herb gathering, literally the most NPC side quest imaginable. She squeaks out an "Are you absolutely sure?" Our Gigachad crosses his tree trunk arms and shrugs. If it pays the bills, he is totally down. He then casually asks for the drop location. The blonde stammers that they grow on the town's outskirts, handing over a sloppy sketch of the plant. Flashing a huge grin, he grabs the paper and cheerfully promises to be right back. The second the door swings shut behind him, Rosa just sits there completely mind-blown. What on earth was that interaction? He was way too chill. Her pink-haired bestie literally has to shake her by the shoulders to snap her back to reality. Cut to the forest. Arthur tracks down a patch of weeds and squints back and forth between them and his bootleg drawing. Looks like a match. He mutters to himself, wondering if these weird-looking things are actually meant for healing potions. Brushing it off, he gets straight to grinding with a goofy smirk. And honestly, watching him flex all that muscle, Oh my gosh, I am looking respectfully, but wow, ahem, my bad, let's get back on track. Our boy is absolutely dialed in for his very first Merc mission. Barely an hour later, he is already back. A ridiculously massive burlap sack slams onto the reception counter, making Rosa jump out of her skin. Will this cover it? He asks, practically glowing with pride. Milano is low-key terrified, he just deforested the entire zone. But when she actually checks the loot, her jaw hits the floor. Every single leaf is in perfectly flawless condition. She stutters out that most meathead mercenaries. Most guys just rip these things out of the dirt. But Arthur, he flexes a smug little smirk. Despite looking like a walking tank, the dude's got the gentle touch of a florist. Rosa slides him his payout, a single silver coin. Sure, it barely covers a stale loaf of bread at the cheapest tavern in town, but Arthur, he is practically glowing with pride. This is his very first paycheck earned through good old-fashioned honest hustle, and to him that means absolutely everything. He tells Rosa he's super hyped about the gig and instantly demands another quest, leaving the poor receptionist totally glitched out. Her brain is completely short-circuiting. Why is this terrifying mountain-sized barbarian absolutely thrilled about picking pretty little flowers? Green Eyes is completely baffled. By now she's convinced this new merc is just a massive weirdo. I mean, after foraging for herbs, scrubbing down a dusty basement, and literally crawling through the gross sewers, Arthur is still going strong. His next F-rank pick, organizing a literal storage unit, Rosa is on the verge of losing her mind. Counting the weed-pulling gig, the guy has basically gone on a 3-quest chores streak. Watching this hulking beast smile like a kid on Christmas over literal housework, she seriously starts wondering, is this dude secretly a clean freak? Slapping on her best fake customer service smile, she stamps the paperwork and speeds him out the door. Our boy rolls up to the warehouse, totally hyped to scrub. The owner is standing by, fully expecting some scrawny teenager to show up for a few pennies. Instead, Arthur blocks out the sun, flashing a giant smile, casually dropping that he's the designated janitor for the day. The poor woman's soul basically leaves her body. Pure panic washes over her face. He politely asks if she's the boss, and she barely stammers out a weak yes. All she can scream in her head is Barbarian, but plot twist, he's the ultimate MVP for the job, tossing massive crates around like they're made of cardboard. Next up, street sweeping. Controlling his monstrous strength with a flimsy broom was tricky at first, but he catches the vibe quick. But what our silver-haired giant doesn't realize is that he's got an audience hiding behind a window. The legendary Swordmaster Kane is literally stalking him through binoculars. Kane's brain is absolutely frying right now. Arthur packs enough raw, unadulterated power to wipe an entire kingdom off the map. Literally any empire would kill to recruit him. And what is he doing with that god-tier strength, sweeping literal trash off the pavement? And the craziest part, he is taking this sweeping gig deadly seriously. Kane is just speechless. Meanwhile, our boy is out there wiping sweat off his brow, deeply soaking in the pure, wholesome satisfaction of a hard day on the grind. The next morning, his muscles are screaming, but the vibe's immaculate. He rolls out of bed and spots a little pouch sitting on the nightstand. Flashback to Rosa handing over his day one earnings, totally hyping him up for crushing 15 whole requests back to back. 15 silver coins clinking in one bag. To a guy like him, it feels like hitting the jackpot. He had thanked her, with the brightest, goofiest grin, promising to show up again the next day. Just thinking about it keeps the smile glued to his face. Time to kick off day 2. In modern society, stepping out into the morning sun, Arthur struts through town, totally ignoring the terrified side eyes from the locals. He's walking with that undeniable first paycheck swagger, but then he slams on the brakes. His eyes lock onto a building, instantly intrigued. A public library. He pushes the doors open. The librarian turns around to hit him with a warm welcome and instantly shrieks in terror, because this hulking brute of a barbarian is asking in the politest voice ever if he can browse their book collection. Cut to a bit later, once the panic finally dies down. He's sitting dead silent in a tiny chair, completely lost in a novel. The librarian is just staring at him from her desk, totally failing to compute the math on this situation. Meanwhile, outside, Kane is back on his stalking grind, and he is equally shook. The barbarian menace is chilling in a library, casually thumbing through some Gabriel Garcia Marquez literature. Kane is literally questioning reality. Are the savages from the Snow Plains secretly high society intellectuals? Or is this specific guy just an absolute glitch in the Matrix? Our MC slams a history textbook shut, breaking it down into one simple fact. The Empire took the massive W. He suddenly remembers Melissa mentioning she was heading to the very kingdom that tried to fight off that exact empire. So now the puzzle pieces are clicking into place. The lore says the Empire is currently an absolute powerhouse, and they've basically turned the Miller Kingdom into their personal puppet state. They've already conquered half of the human map, and they are not slowing down anytime soon. Arthur just sits there completely mind-blown, trying to wrap his head around the insane concept of actual world domination. Tossing the heavy human politics aside, he cracks open the real prize, a guide to non-human races. Instantly, he gets crazy hyped, finding out that all those legendary mythical creatures are 100% legit. The pages are stacked with epic locations. Like a massive dwarf cavern, absolutely loaded with rare loot and glittering ores, there's a hidden fairy village, a glowing celestial city floating in the sky, and the ultimate secret elf sanctuary, the sacred elven realm. The text claims this divine land is so heavily guarded, literally no human has ever stepped foot in it. Arthur just flashes a confident, cocky smirk. He's thinking, maybe, just maybe, he's got exactly what it takes, special enough to visit anyway. But flip the page and his whole vibe shifts. Wait, there are more places like the Wasteland. He hits a chapter on the demonic realm zone, straight up locked out for humans, crawling with twisted monsters. There are 5 of them, dropping names like the Silent Forest, the Blazing Abyss, the Deep Sea, and the Deep Hole. Sounds cozy. Then hits number 5. The Wasteland. His literal front yard. The book claims these realms breed nightmare fuel, but somehow they can't leak their chaos into human territory. Arthur is floored. Just how massive is this world? The white snowfield, also known as the Wasteland, already felt endlessly massive, and there are straight-up clones of it out there. Once he soaks up enough lore, he stacks the books perfectly on the shelf, giving the librarian another mini heart attack. Sliding out, he flashes a polite smile and drops a thank you for the solid reading material. With one last friendly nod, Arthur dips out, the bell chiming right behind him. He heads straight back to the Mercenary Guild, catching Rosa off guard when he asks for more gigs. The second she slides him a fresh quest form, his face completely lights up. He seriously lives for these grindy fetch quests. Meanwhile, hanging in the shadows, Master Harry is still creeping. After 2 days of stalking, he reaches one conclusion. This dude is an absolute weirdo. Time for a proper introduction. Later that night, our boy is strolling through town, hyped about his daily grind. He jingles his coin pouch. Even these low-tier side quests are stacking up pretty nicely. Keep this up and he'll be an S-tier merc in no time. But deep in a sketchy alley, eyes are tracking him. A figure steps out, totally blocking his path. Arthur hits the brakes and turns, looking mildly confused. It's the old guy from earlier, the master, looking all edgy under his hood. Our prota just chills and casually points out the dude's been tailing him all day. Kane freezes. The stealth god just got completely exposed. Arthur crosses his arms, asking what's up, while the old man's brain is short-circuiting. He sensed me. He literally wiped his aura clean. Not a single soul should have clocked him. Since the hooded creeper is giving the silent treatment, Arthur puts 2 and 2 together. He cracks his knuckles. So you, a mugger. Harry just stands there, absolutely baffled. When he doesn't answer, Arthur takes it as a hardcore yes. Guess even nice towns have their rats. Kane tries to object, but hesitates. Would this kid even buy that he's a legendary swordmaster? Instead, our guy just sighs and asks if the economy is really that trashed that Grandpa's gotta rob people. Then a light bulb goes off. Busting a bandit would look insane on his mercenary resume. Kane just stares, trying to process how this conversation derailed so fast. But then he realizes, if the kid thinks he's a thug, this is the ultimate chance to stress test him. Before he even finishes that thought, Arthur blips right out of existence. Just gone. Harry Kane whips around in shock, only for Arthur to casually spawn right behind him. His eyes are glowing as he reaches out to snatch Kane, realizing he's about to get folded. The old man blasts out green energy to block the grab. Arthur pauses, then cracks a huge grin. Not bad, old man. You got some speed. Kane lands a few feet away, his brain practically exploding. He can't wrap his head around it. Arthur almost tagged him. And he moved that fast using pure raw physical stats. Kane didn't sense a single drop of aura. Meanwhile, Arthur's just standing there smirking like he didn't just break the sound barrier. Kane grits his teeth. The test is over, he's going all in. But in a flash, Arthur ghosts him again. He's way too fast. Before Harry can even twitch, Arthur's already clamped onto his arm. The swordmaster is shook. Even with his senses cranked to the max, he couldn't react in time. The grip is bone-crushing. Like his arm is locked inside solid concrete and his entire body is getting dragged with it. As he scrambles, the old guy realizes a terrifying truth. He can't even match Arthur's raw strength. The power gap is just illegal. So he decides to go completely all out. Arthur catches a blinding glow charging up in Kane's palm right before the swordmaster. Unleashes a massive shockwave of pure energy. The blast erupts into a blinding flash that forces even Kane to jump back landing, panting heavily, his hands still literally sparking. But Arthur Dude is completely spotless, just casually noting that modern-day bandits really have all sorts of crazy tricks up their sleeves. Kane is absolutely raging that this meathead keeps calling him a thug. He is fuming. That move was literal mana materialization, an ultra-rare technique, strictly meant for elite fighters, and Arthur is out here treating it like some cheap parlor trick. But our silver-haired boy just stares right back, flashing this massive, super impressed grin. That leaves Kane totally speechless, since his ultimate attack could literally shred through solid steel, yet Arthur does not have a single scratch on him. The old man stares at this dude's ridiculous physique, totally mind-blown over how bare skin just tanked that nuke. Arthur steps up, casually dropping that it is time to wrap this up. Hearing that Kane finally scrambles to draw his blade, but right before he can even grip the hilt, a single finger from Arthur blocks the draw. Kane's eyes practically bulge out of his skull from the pure shock. This should literally be impossible. He pushes down with everything he has, but he cannot budge the insane pressure of just one single finger. Then he glances up, only to see Arthur's eyes glowing that terrifying bright purple once again. A single tear of pure despair rolls right down Kane's cheek. He mentally accepts his doom before one clean strike completely knocks him out cold. Hoisting the unconscious master into the air, Arthur figures this is exactly what an everyday bandit is supposed to look like in a fantasy world. A few minutes later, he strolls right up to the guardhouse, casually dragging Kane along the dirt. The guard starts aggressively stuttering, asking what on earth this is supposed to mean, his brain barely processing the scene. Did this absolute random barbarian really just solo an actual superhuman? Our gray-haired boy simply announces he caught a mugger. The guard is way too stunned to hide his panic, and Arthur just smoothly asks if turning him in counts towards his mercenary quest. Basically, the poor guard's brain completely short-circuits, because that is Swordmaster Kane, an actual living legend, and our main character is lugging him around like a sack of dirty laundry. Finally, the guard practically screams that this guy is definitely not a thief. Arthur's single brain cell immediately jumps to a wild conclusion. Wait, so you know him? If he is not the mugger, you must be his accomplice. Totally panicking, the guard violently snaps to attention and bows deeply to the unconscious old man, respectfully greeting Master Kane of the Gagentra Kingdom. You can honestly hear the single rusty gear in Arthur's head trying to turn. He stares down at the old guy, super confused. A dude named Swordmaster is just your everyday street mugger. In disguise. No shot, he is definitely not buying it. Arthur aggressively insists that Kane straight up jumped him for his silver. The guard is practically begging Arthur to believe him, swearing he would never ever mistake a face like that. While the poor guard desperately tries to explain the facts, Arthur locks in his own ridiculously unhinged conclusion. Maybe Swordmaster is just some super edgy rank for high-level bandits. The guard can only deadpan stare at him, wondering what kind of absolute nonsense he is hearing right now. After a violently long and awkward pause, he decides this mess is way above his pay grade, so he immediately kicks the problem up to his boss. Cut to a few minutes later, and the big boss, Marcus Miller, is absolutely losing his mind. Wait, what? Harry Kane got completely clapped. Next up is a painfully awkward apology session. It is just a non-stop ping-pong of my bads and no totally my faults. Right after that, the two of them just sit there in a dead silence so intensely awkward it physically hurts, watching from the doorway. Lord Miller is mentally sweating, trying to make sense of this glitch in the Matrix. He expected a decent clash, sure, but definitely not Kane getting completely steamrolled. The truth is as simple as it is terrifying. This random barbarian is genuinely leagues above a swordmaster. And sure, even if Kane is the newest rookie to get the title, that rank still carries massive heavyweight status. Humiliating him turns Arthur into a wildly dangerous wildcard, and Lord Miller absolutely refuses to deal with this massive head ache. So he just slaps a big old misunderstanding label on the whole thing and bails, leaving them to chat in private. The second that door clicks shut, the room instantly plummets right back into that suffocatingly awkward silence. The secondhand cringe is straight up brutal, as Kane takes this incredibly shaky sip of tea, his ego absolutely shattered into pieces. Still recovering from the beatdown of a lifetime, he desperately tries to salvage some dignity and formally introduces himself again as Kane the Swordmaster. But Arthur, being classic Arthur, just casually asks if Swordmaster is his actual last name. Kane forcefully sighs, explaining that when someone peaks at that god-tier level, they literally drop their last name. Arthur just nods along, totally unfazed, and immediately pivots to asking about that wild energy attack. From earlier hyped up to find out if it is some super secret unlockable skill. He casually flexes the glowing green energy in his palm, asking if this is what he meant. Arthur's eyes instantly light up. He straight up admits he totally thought it was just some cheap parlor trick at first. But now that he realizes it's an actual swordmaster technique, his mind is completely blown. The old man breaks it down. It's called aura, stemming from a primal energy source known as mystic. Our OP protagonist finally connects the dots that the crazy move from earlier was actually aura. Looking like a kid on Christmas morning, he immediately begs to learn how to use it. To himself, Cain explains that mystic is the purest form of raw power. Swordsmen forge it into aura, while mages channel it as mana. A sly, cheeky grin creeps across Arthur's face. So, literally anyone can learn this mystic stuff. Will you teach me? Cain just freezes in dead silence. As Arthur leans in close, flashing that puppy dog smile, and practically begging for lessons. Eventually Cain caves. Still, it makes zero sense to him. Why beg for his help when Arthur is blatantly way stronger? Arthur keeps it real and confesses he actually has no clue what he's doing. He's literally just been throwing hands on pure instinct this whole time. That confession instantly brings Cain back to life. This is his golden ticket. He can mentor the Barbarian and finally claw back some of his shattered ego. He puffs up his chest and boldly declares, "All right then, a true swordmaster. We'll show you the ropes, but a swordmaster is completely useless without his blade. Without it, I'm only half the man I usually am." Arthur just nods along, totally buying it. "Oh, that makes total sense. No wonder you felt so incredibly weak you didn't have your sword." Cain's soul leaves his body once again, and Arthur casually digs the knife deeper, rambling about how weird it was. If Cain had just used his sword, maybe he actually would have won. Arthur flashes a wholesome, supportive smile, completely clueless to the emotional damage he's dealing. Meanwhile, Cain is having a full-blown internal breakdown as his pride gets stomped into the dirt yet again, barely keeping his composure. Master Cain kicks off the training session. He breaks down that true swordsmanship isn't just mindlessly swinging a weapon, it's about weaving aura into the blade. According to Cain, his signature style can literally turn illusions into reality. To test the waters, the old man asks what Arthur actually saw when he fought his disciple. Arthur instantly points out how the single blade magically split into 3 distinct physical strikes. "So that's materialization," Arthur says, immediately grasping the core concept. He even figures out that the whole style is built purely on skill and pinpoint accuracy, not just mindless brute strength. Cain confirms it through gritted teeth. Cain straightens up dramatically, stating that a true swordmaster must perfectly fuse their blade with their aura. He backs it up by pouring his raw energy straight into the steel until it radiates a blinding, toxic green glow. Arthur's face completely lights up. "Oh, so that right there is aura." Sweating bullets, Cain awkwardly stammers out a yes. He still can't wrap his head around the fact that he's giving a masterclass to a literal barbarian, so he decides that dropping a visual demonstration will work way better than just yapping. "Watch closely," he says, dropping into his combat stance. He dials in his focus, completely ready to prove his worth. He then unleashes a devastating downward slash, with everything he's got sending a massive wave of razor-sharp green arcs, tearing through the training hall and absolutely shredding the floor. Arthur watches like a hawk, completely unfazed. He quickly clocks that the strike perfectly split into 5 separate hits. As the dust finally clears, the old man brags that plenty of guys can fake illusions with their aura, but only his elite swordsmanship can actually give those phantoms physical mass. Looking smug as hell, he asks, "So, what do you think?" The silver-haired beast hits him with the most brutally disrespectful deadpan response possible. "Honestly, I'm pretty sure I could pull that off too." Cain instantly snaps, calling it absolute garbage. Internally, he is fully losing his mind just thinking about the decades of blood, sweat, and tears it took him to master this art. Our boy just cuts him off casually, saying it'd be way faster to just show him. He then casually scoops up a massive battle axe, leaving Cain completely dumbfounded. A heavy axe, Arthur plants his feet and swings, whipping the ridiculously huge weapon. So insanely fast that it literally leaves multiple clear afterimages dragging right behind it. Cain is dead silent. Then the horrifying reality hits him like a truck. Our boy Arthur just mimicked his ultimate technique, using nothing but psychotic speed and sheer unadulterated brute force. He slams the axe down and a colossal shockwave violently rips through the hall. In a blinding, earth-shattering explosion, Cain is left totally paralyzed in pure shock, just staring at the smoke pouring off Arthur's axe. Flashing a smug little smirk, Arthur throws the question right back at him. "So how was that?" He knows exactly what he just did. Cain desperately tries to make sense of the madness. It looked exactly like an illusion turned into reality, but it was literally just godly speed and absurd physical strength. And even he almost fell for it. Cain stutters that it was nothing but a basic meathead swing. But Arthur hits him with the ultimate reality check. If the outcome is exactly the same in a real fight, does the fancy technique even matter? That completely shuts Kane up. He knows Arthur is totally right, and it deals a lethal critical hit to his fragile ego. Absolutely refusing to accept this humiliation, Kane completely snaps. So how about this, bam? With a blinding flash of green aura, he spawns multiple solid shadow clones. This time around, Arthur is actually shook. It literally looks like Kane sliced his own body into pieces. The old man and his clones rush in all at once, and their perfectly synced combo attack blasts a massive, smoking crater right into the floor. Kane totally flexes, bragging that this ultimate move comes from flawless aura control. Then he straight up dares Arthur to try and copy it. Arthur bro just stays dead silent. He just locks in and hoists his massive battle axe. In a split second, he starts spinning, cranking up the speed faster and faster, morphing into an absolute tornado of pure destruction. Yeah, this is looking real bad for Kane. The rotation goes absolutely overdrive, whipping up a literal cyclone inside the hall that aggressively shreds the stone right off the walls. When the dust finally settles, Arthur is just chilling perfectly fine in the middle of the wreckage. He casually drops a, "So how was that?" That completely shatters Kane's soul. He collapses to the floor, violently shaking and bawling his eyes out because his entire life's work just got clowned on. He is downright broken. The legendary swordmaster is reduced to a pathetic sobbing mess on the tiles. Arthur stares down at him, bluntly pointing out that the old man's mental game is way weaker than he thought. But then, flipping the script entirely, he drops a completely genuine compliment. "Your blade work. It is legitimately insane." Arthur confesses that all he did was swing his giant axe really, really fast. That is not actual sword technique. It is literally just raw brute force. The old man's technique hits entirely different. Those were not just some cheap fake after images. They were 100% real, and our MC admits that he could never ever pull off those kind of mystical arts. That tiny ego boost is exactly what Kane needed to revive his spirit. His swordsmanship is not trash after all. He proudly declares that fusing illusion and reality into a single seamless strike is a top-tier art only he can pull off. Just like that, his massive ego is back online with a raging fire, blazing in his eyes. He finally realizes this is not a glitch in his fighting style. Arthur is just built completely wrong. After all, no regular human could ever move fast enough to spoof an aura effect using zero aura. Once the boomer finally chills out, Arthur hits him with the request again. "Can you teach me real sword techniques now?" Kane instantly straightens up, clearing his throat and apologizing for his embarrassing meltdown, with his pride completely glued back together. The real tutorial finally kicks off, diving straight into the absolute basics of the mystery. He explains that to manipulate aura, you gotta awaken the mystery first. No swordsman or mage is ever hitting the max level cap without it unless they are clerics, literally leeching holy power straight from the gods. Arthur tilts his head, asking if divine magic is a totally different ballgame. Kane nods, confirming that it is. A cleric's power is basically a cheat code gifted by the deities, not something farmed from their own natural talent. Our MC listens, genuinely hooked. The veteran master keeps breaking it down, explaining that the mystery is essentially the dormant energy locked inside everybody. How you channel it dictates absolutely everything, whether it mutates into aura mana or pure spirit energy. Waking that bad boy up is step number 1. He then drops the lore drop. There are 5 exact stages to mastering this energy, and stage 1 is called perceiving the mystery. Arthur wonders if any random NPC can pull this off, but the old man shoots that down fast. "Zero talent. You won't feel a single drop of it," he adds. That people who can barely sense it are permanently stuck in the third-rate trash tier. Depending on how flawlessly someone manipulates this energy, every single fighter gets boxed into one of 5 ranks. You got your third class, second class, first class transcendental, and the god tier hero class. Hearing those exact words, it totally triggers a hardcore flashback for our protagonist. Kane just brushes past it casually, mentioning that ranks are honestly just loose guidelines, and he absolutely shouldn't be sweating the tier list just yet. Catching all this info, Arthur nods, saying he totally gets the vibe. So the old man claps his hands, time to stop yapping and start grinding. He locks his eyes on Arthur, hyped to guide him right through step 1, perceiving the mystery. The sensei tells him to tap into a 6th sense he has never even flexed before. The ground rules are basic. Feel the passing breeze, feel the dirt beneath your boots. Our boy squeezes his eyes shut, trying desperately to lock in. A beat passes. He pops his eyes open and flat out admits he feels absolutely zero. Kane's jaw hits the floor. He assumed an absolute unit like Arthur would unlock this. Instantly, he mutters under his breath that overpowered freaks usually adapt fast, but Arthur is apparently the one huge exception. Arthur shrugs, mentioning that literally nobody back in his frozen wasteland of a hometown has ever sensed this kind of magic. So the old guy pivots to plan B and decides to manually jumpstart the kid's core, funneling his own raw energy straight into Arthur's body. Arthur's face instantly lights up. Wait, are you doing an aura transfer? Kane gives him a super dodgy, vague answer. Something like that. Looking completely starstruck, our protagonist nods, nerding out about how he had only ever seen this kind of trick in old fantasy books. Kane slaps a heavy hand onto his spine, telling him to just chill out and vibe with the energy flow. But the absolute split second he makes contact, Kane is absolutely shook. Like, what kind of crazy build is this? Touching the dude feels like slapping solid bedrock. And the old man genuinely starts questioning if Arthur is even human. Arthur snaps him back to reality, and Kane nervously apologizes for spacing out. Getting dead serious, he starts flooding aura into our boy, desperately hoping to jumpstart his hidden potential. The glowing green energy pulses right into the MC. Kane is completely confident this is going to work, but something is totally off. He freezes, just massively confused. He can't find a single opening, and honestly, he can't even push deep enough to start searching. It literally feels like diving headfirst into an endless, massive black hole. Throwing in the towel, he hits a total brick wall and backs away. Arthur instantly starts low-key panicking. Wait, what do you mean it's not working? Am I just trash at this? Kane quickly shuts that down, explaining it has zero to do with talent. Basically, Arthur needs to carve his own path to unlock that buff. Our guy gets it, but he's still stressing hard. So you're telling me I'm completely locked out of feeling magic? The old man struggles to find the right words. He couldn't even scan Arthur's true potential because his anatomy is just built different. The dude's muscles are so insanely dense they literally act like a cheat code armor, completely deflecting the aura. Kane admits he's never witnessed anything this crazy. His raw brute strength is straight up blocking magic. Our MC looks super bummed out, realizing his dream of wielding mystical power is pretty much dead. Kane tries to backtrack, saying it's not 100% guaranteed. He drops the idea of hitting up other swordmasters or maybe the big brain mages at the magic tower. He sincerely apologizes, but Arthur brushes it off like a champ, saying it's all good, there's gotta be a loophole somewhere. Flashing a massive grin, he throws Kane a totally genuine thank you for trying. Staring at him, the old man remembers the other barbarians he's dealt with, straight-up savage meatheads who only craved bloodshed. But Arthur hits different, so Kane shoots his shot and asks if he'd chill in their kingdom. He promises him VIP status, a shiny title, and a top-tier rank. Arthur doesn't even hesitate. Hard pass. I'm not playing the loyal dog for anybody. Kane was secretly banking on this powerhouse to help them finally break free from the Empire's grip, so he pushes his luck one last time. But Arthur just smirks, completely unfazed by the flex. He's making his own rules. The boomer is taken aback. But then reality clicks. He totally gets the vibe. Dropping one final heavy thanks, Arthur promises he'll remember this favor. And just like that, our boy dips. Watching him walk away, the master realizes trying to leash this guy was pure clown behavior. Nobody's ever gonna own a beast like him. He walks his own path, period. And that unpredictable energy makes him way more lethal than any savage out there. With a heavy sigh, Kane's brain pivots back to the Emperor and his toxic obsession with invading the literal demon realm. Cut to a bit later. The big boss Marcus Miller is posted up at his desk, already fully clued into the Emperor's psychotic bucket list. Kane drops the bad news. Lives are being thrown away for nothing. He figures the Emperor is just trying to cosplay as some legendary conqueror. But still, he shoves that drama aside for a sec. He goes on to point out that the Empire hasn't even conquered the human map yet, making this whole demon raid super unhinged. He connects the dots fast. The Emperor is totally going to target their turf next. Kane nods along. Since their hood technically still falls under the Empire's umbrella, a draft notice could drop literally any day. Leaning back, Kane starts venting about how cooked the world is right now, and the Emperor's absolute madness. Suddenly, Miller's whole vibe shifts. He leans in close and asks about a sketchy rumor floating around. The old man confirms the worst demon activity is spiking, and it's getting way too easy to track. Dungeons are spawning like crazy, and word on the street is that something nasty is bleeding over from the demon side. Whatever the hell it is, nobody is making it out of this easily. Then the old man adds a spooky detail: Arthur showing up right when all this goes down feels way too coincidental. Miller totally backs him up. That math ain't mathing. Kane asks for his theory, but Marcus just throws his hands up. He's got zero clue. Look, at least Arthur hasn't tried to wipe them out yet. But other than that, the guy is a walking question mark. Meanwhile, that exact walking mystery is just casually strolling through town, but he starts catching a super weird vibe. NPCs keep dodging him on the street, literally snatching their kids out of his path. And what's Arthur's big brain conclusion? It's gotta be the fit. Yep, he convinces himself that his raw beast pelt vest is just giving off major caveman energy. So he makes a call, it's time to cop some new drip. After wandering a bit, he stumbles upon an insanely high-end tailor shop. What could possibly go wrong? The tailor spins around and practically flatlines. Right there in his bougie boutique stands an absolute unit of a barbarian, literally fighting back tears. The dude stammers out that he doesn't stalk Arthur's massive size, but watching the giant's face totally drop. Yeah, he instantly panics and pitches a custom-tailored fit. Boom. The gray-haired guy's mood does a total 180 hyped to greenlight the project. The tailor nods along, but deep down, he's already mentally listing all the brutal ways this Goliath might crush him if the drip turns out trash. Later, strolling back to the guild, something in the dirt snags the barbarian's eye. It's this tiny glowing blue orb just pulsing on the ground. So, yeah, side quest time. He squints at it, totally mesmerized by the weird swirling patterns trapped inside. Figuring the guild nerds might have a clue, he pockets the sketchy artifact and heads out. Once inside, he flexes the orb to Rosa, asking if she recognizes the tech. He drops it right into her palm, adding the casual detail that it was literally street loot. She inspects it. Definitely artificial and low-key looks. Crazy expensive. No brand logo, though. But then, her eyes totally glaze over. A split second later, snap times, our MC clicks his fingers, yanking her right out of that freaky trance. She's just staring off into the void, totally zoned out. Arthur's like, you good? Bro swore the orb was literally sucking her soul out. The blonde denies the whole glitch out, but she definitely senses some heavy cursed energy radiating from it. She volunteers to run an appraisal. Arthur just chuckles, dropping a classic, nah. Unlocking the mystery is the best part. Before seamlessly shifting gears to ask about today's daily quests, she hands over the usual F-tier grunt work, scrubbing and gathering, and Arthur's face literally glows up like a kid on Christmas. Later, after grinding out another full 9 to 5, he crashes at his pad, absolutely riding high. He pulls out that sketchy orb again, his mind looping back to Rosa's freaky zoning out. Out of nowhere, a creepy velvet voice starts whispering straight from the core. Come to me. It loops the audio, literally downloading GPS coordinates right into his brain. Arthur connects the dots, definitely some high-tier mind control magic. The orb keeps throbbing with this super cursed vibe, so obviously he decides to follow it. The phantom voice walks him straight to a dark cavern, and he just kicks the door down verbally. Yo, I made it, who's pinging me? A gravelly, shadow-drenched voice echoes back. Another lamb for the slaughter, roasting him as some brain-dead barbarian, but hey, decent enough fodder. The guy talking trash, a literal skeleton mage, rocking blazing blue hellfire. He hypes up his own long-awaited comeback tour. So who exactly is this edgy bag of bones? Way back in the day, he was an absolute menace of a dark sorcerer pulling strings behind the scenes. He sparked literal wars until a squad of heroes finally pulled up to end his run. Facing a total team wipe, he ditched his physical shell and hard-locked his soul into a vessel, leveling up into a lich, basically achieving god mode immunity, as long as nobody touched his soul jar anyway. Trying to score a new body, he camped out by this totally random NPC village and started spamming those blue orbs like bait to farm sacrifices. The orbs acted like power banks for his big respawn and naturally fueled his whole I will rule the world villain arc. His master plan was flawless until a massive glitch rolled up. Why the hell is a barbarian in his lobby? He deliberately picked this middle-of-nowhere server to dodge high-level players, so Arthur crashing the party makes zero sense. Scanning his stats through magic, the lich figures Arthur's tanky build actually makes him top-tier sacrifice material. See, his orb only brainwashes targets with an awakened mana pool, so he just assumes Arthur is some magicless meathead. That's why he shoots the invite. Step inside, Savage. Be the final puzzle piece. And our guy just waltzes right up to the massive wooden dungeon doors. He shoves them open and barges right in. He locks onto the final boss, a skeleton mage draped in robes, rocking those toxic blue glowing eyes. Arthur is instantly starstruck. An actual real-life lich, straight out of an epic fantasy raid. But now the lich is the one tripping out. He barks at Arthur, demanding to know his class stats, suddenly realizing his mind control spell totally lagged out. Our MC scans the scattered bones decorating the floor, piecing together the sick trap this guy was running. But the lich is sweating because he literally can't detect a single drop of mana from this dude. His only logic. Arthur must be packing some legendary pay-to-win item shielding his brain. Arthur deadpan replies he isn't carrying anything close to that. The lich cuts the chatter and hoists his glowing staff. If this giant won't fall in line, then it's time for brute force. He summons his undead mob, commanding them to rush, and a wave of armored skeletons aggroes straight for the kill. They swarm him, but Arthur just flashes a cocky smirk. So we really are dealing with an evil dungeon lich here. He clocks the first skeleton with a clean right hook, shattering it into a million pieces. The faceless freak is completely shook. I mean literally shook, because bro doesn't even have a face. Arthur shakes off his hand, sighing that this lich is way more mid than he thought. That totally triggers the bag of bones. He completely loses it, threatening to literally rip Arthur limb from limb, and unleashes the whole mob to wipe him off the map. Arthur just scoffs, popping his knuckles. One single punch vaporizes the closest skeleton into dust, and then, a brutal roundhouse kick obliterates the next. Getting desperate, the bony boss declares playtime is over. His staff glows blindingly bright. As he summons his absolute ultimate minion, Arthur's eyes snap wide open. A colossal, heavily armored skeleton knight rises up, dual-wielding a massive sword and shield. But instead of panicking, our boy gets insanely hyped. Maybe this guy will actually put up a fight. The lich screeches the kill order, and the giant knight charges in like a literal freight train. Our MC just grins from ear to ear, cracking his knuckles one more time. The behemoth swings its glowing greatsword, but Arthur just stands there unbothered. A skeleton knight, spawned by a lich, is definitely rare. But a single punch is still all it takes to completely cave its skull in. The undead giant crumbles into an avalanche of shattered bone and dust. The lich just awkwardly stares, totally dumbfounded by this zero-diff beatdown. As the dust settles, Arthur casually stomps on the knight's twitching hand, crushing it into powder. Then, he glances back, looking completely bored, asking if that was really it. The lich starts low-key panicking, scanning Arthur to figure out what he is. But his magic reads absolutely zero. He screams, "Who the hell are you? No mana, no hidden auras, no crazy artifacts. It makes zero sense." This random barbarian just one-tapped a top-tier undead, with nothing but his bare fists. Realizing Arthur is way too dangerous to let slide, the lich steps up to handle things personally, calling it a total honor. He floats down, serving major final boss energy. But suddenly our MC screams and staggers backward, as a thick, suffocating black fog wraps around him. The lich's voice echoes through the cavern, demanding the barbarian tremble in fear. He vows Arthur will pay for trespassing, but Arthur just looks mad confused. He's like, "Bro, I only came because the orb summoned me, didn't you? Leave that thing out there." So yeah, the lich literally dropped bait in the village, and Arthur just followed the loot. That totally sets the lich off. He shrieks, demanding silence, and officially drops his boss title. "I am the great mage of destruction, Cardus Branurasquesus." Arthur suddenly gets flashbacks of the Elf Queen, wondering if these obnoxiously long names are just the standard aesthetic around here. Done yapping, Cartus unleashes a massive vortex, a surging tsunami of dark magic. He claims Arthur will be the ultimate sacrifice for his comeback. The hex engulfs Arthur, and his eyes immediately go dead, rolling back like he's totally hypnotized. Cardus flares up with pure hype. This is his signature move, locking victims inside their darkest traumas until their minds completely shatter. He's 100% sure a basic barbarian with zero magic resist is absolutely cooked, the easiest W of his life. But then the vibe shifts. Getting paranoid that Arthur might actually be built different, Cartus decides to take him alive, instead deploying his minions. Another skeleton warrior crawls out of the dirt, blade drawn, and marches straight toward the paralyzed Arthur. But literally right before it connects, a vicious purple flare flashes in Arthur's eyes. He pivots in a split second, roundhousing the skeleton so violently its entire ribcage turns to ash. Well, so much for being stunned. Then he just casually looks back at the lich, like absolutely nothing happened. And once again, Cartus is left completely speechless. His brain is short-circuiting. How is this even possible? That curse was an instant kill. Arthur barely even reacts, just asking if the lich is going to stand there staring all day. Because this spell clearly ain't it. Ignoring the disrespect, Cartus burns through his remaining power, chanting a super dramatic incantation. He launches his ultimate attack, a gigantic apocalyptic sphere of dark energy that looks ready to swallow the whole room. And how does Arthur react to a literal nuke? His eyes light up like a kid waking up on Christmas morning. Cartus cackles, completely convinced he just secured the bag. But a second later, he's violently coughing, dropping to his knees. He dumped all his mana. Still, he's dead certain no mere barbarian could tank a blast that massive. He looks up fully, expecting a smoking crater, and completely freezes in pure terror. Because Arthur is just chilling there without a single scratch on him. Our boy even compliments him, saying that was kinda impressive, and casually asks if that's really all he's got. Cartus absolutely loses his mind. He just dropped his most That blast should have completely melted a top-tier hero's brain, but it didn't even leave a scratch. The skeleton absolutely loses it, demanding to know what the heck Arthur actually is. Meanwhile, our guy is just curious, not a single drop of sweat. He's low-key disappointed because the attack looked super flashy, but hit like a wet noodle. The bony villain completely freezes, panic mode activated. Arthur casually hefts his massive axe, flashing a chilling grin as he announces, "My turn." But literal milliseconds before Arthur turns him into bone dust, the walking skeleton suddenly gets a lightbulb moment. A wicked, twisted smirk spreads across his skull. He's completely delusional, entirely convinced he just cracked the code and that Arthur knows his secret identity. He starts yapping about how our OP protagonist tracked him down on purpose. Meanwhile, our beefy barbarian is just standing there hitting him with the ultimate blank stare, literally wondering what on earth this yapping pile of calcium is even babbling about. Then Kratos drops the most cliché, over-the-top evil laugh ever. He boasts that the Empire must be absolutely terrified of him to send an assassin this fast. Bro's ego is completely off the charts. He flexes that he's gonna rise from the He starts dropping lore about some top-secret government Black Ops project churning out ultimate human weapons. And he's 100% certain Arthur is a lab rat built specifically to counter him. But hey, he's not going down without swinging. He dramatically screams his full title. "I am Kratos, the immortal Lich, and I will crush the Empire." Arthur's reaction to this epic villain monologue, super simple. This dude is totally tripping. Finally done yapping, the Lich summons this glowing, ghostly-looking jar out of thin air. It's his phylactery. Literally, the VIP lounge for his soul. He grabs it, completely ready to unleash his ultimate desperate power move. Then boom, a massive blinding laser beam of pure magic violently blasts out of the jar and slams dead center into Arthur's chest. Arthur's eyes roll back completely white. Jackpot, it actually connected. The skeleton's master plan is to aggressively force his own soul straight into Arthur's body and completely hijack it. But this is a crazy, risky, no-take-backs kind of gamble. Once he goes in, he's permanently locked in unless he manages to turn himself into a lich all over again. Still, it's do or die right now. He forcefully pushes in, proudly shouting that this absolute unit of a body belongs to him now. But the exact millisecond he crosses into Arthur's headspace, he instantly knows he just messed up. Badly. He frantically looks around, completely paralyzed by shock. Terrified, stammering out, "What? What the heck is this place? Is this actually the barbarian's mind?" Just glancing at this absolute nightmare dimension is enough to send a violently freezing chill down his non-existent spine. Something is fundamentally, terrifyingly wrong here. He seriously starts second-guessing everything. Did the Empire actually send this guy? Or is he dealing with an actual walking net? As his soul starts getting brutally ripped into tiny little shreds, the horrible truth drops. Nope. There is zero chance human science cooked up something this monstrous. It is quite literally shattering his sanity into a million pieces. With one final pathetic screech of total confusion, the all-powerful Kratos gets completely deleted from existence. Snapping back to reality, our main guy is just casually scratching his head, super confused about what just went down. He literally just felt a tiny little tickle, and that was it. Right in front of his boots, the Lich's empty bones violently collapse into a pile of dust. You'd think he'd be hyping up the win. But Arthur is honestly kind of bummed out. He thought that final boss laser looked sick, and desperately wanted to learn what kind of crazy spell it was. He stomps over to the bone pile, casually thinking that undead mages in this world are honestly just mid. He is entirely clueless about the absolute bloodbath that just happened inside his own brain. Still, a dub is a dub. So you know it's time to grab that sweet, sweet loot. He snatches the Lich's staff, remembering how perfectly it glowed during those magic attacks. A huge light bulb goes off. Maybe this shiny magic stick will finally be the glitch he needs to cast spells too, so he stashes it. Or as our barbarian puts it, he literally just forcefully shoves the entire thing right into his Then a shiny jar catches his eye. The soul box thing. He scoops it up, figuring it's probably some kind of fancy life potion. So he decides to haul it straight back to Rosa to see how much cash it'll drop. With his inventory completely full, he scans the room and suddenly, his pure gamer instincts aggressively kick in. He spots a suspiciously weird pattern on the brick wall that completely flew under his radar. Just a minute ago. Wait. A hidden level, he wonders, and then doing exactly what any gamer would do. He aggressively slams the button. Like magic. The heavy stone wall slides open, exposing a crazy dark hidden chamber. He strolls in only to find a crowded room full of random people just standing completely frozen. Like literal stone statues. His very first reaction, not panic. Nope. He is just absolutely mind-blown that secret glitch rooms actually exist in real life. Then the logic kicks in, who the heck are these NPCs? He casually waves a thick hand directly in front of one dude's face, trying to wake him up. He pokes another frozen guy, loudly asking, "Yo, anyone home?" but gets straight up ghosted. Absolute silence. Now he's totally stumped, aggressively scratching his chin over what to do with a whole lobby full of living, breathing mannequins. After a solid minute of thinking, he decides the absolute best gamer move here is to just nope out. For once his logic actually hits, so the guild can totally handle the grunt work, strutting right back into the mercenary hub. He flexes his brand new loot. Rosita hits him with a warm smile, totally shook that he bounced back so fast. He just shrugs it off, saying he had some errands to run. No biggie, just wiping an ancient evil off the map. Rosa looks crazy confused, so Arthur spills the tea about the orb and who actually sent it. She literally cracks up, brushing him off and telling him not to joke about something that heavy. Like, be for real, a literal lich. One of only 5 walking this entire earth, hiding out in some middle-of-nowhere backwater town. Sounds absolutely unhinged. So our boy just casually slams the massive glowing purple urn right onto her desk. That grabs her attention real quick. Deadpan. He drops the bomb that it is the lich's actual life vessel and asks if she can appraise it. Rosa's brain completely blue screens, totally freezing up as the pure shock sets in that he is dropping 0 cap and this is not a prank. Then Arthur casually name drops that there are actually people stuffed inside it too. He says he could have dragged them out, but they looked half dead anyway, so he just dumped that side quest on the guild. Boom, the blonde finally connects the dots, directly linking the lich to the missing persons cases that have been blowing up lately. She shoots up from her chair, panicking that she needs to call for backup right now. Minutes later, a city guard comes crashing in, sweating bullets, screaming if someone actually said lich. Arthur hits him with a chill little wave, welcomes the guy in and just goes, "Yep, all handled." The guard stammers out the lich's super long fantasy title, and when Arthur nods, the dude practically flatlines on the spot. This absolute menace was a top-tier legendary dark mage. A whole century ago, he drove kings insane and literally erased 5 kingdoms off the map. The guard is losing his mind that a boss-level threat was chilling right next to their village. Arthur just gives a massive shrug, claiming the lich was honestly mid. He says the guy pulled some weird moves and basically just played himself. The guard is left speechless. Drenched in sweat, he begs for the actual details, but Arthur's single functioning brain cell has fully clocked out for the day. That is literally all he is getting. Realizing this situation is way above his pay grade, the guard dips out to snitch directly to the boss. When the intel finally reaches Lord Miller, he is absolutely raging. "A literal lich this close to my turf," he screams. The guard backs it all up, flexing the rescued victim's statements and the lich's stolen stash as hardcore proof. Miller instantly clocks the disaster. A boss of this level will definitely aggro the Empire, and his number 1 heavy hitter is completely MIA. This is a massive yikes. He violently slams his fist into the desk, barking orders to fire off an emergency message to the capital right this second. Miller admits they got insanely lucky. If Arthur had not stumbled onto Kartos right after his comeback, they would have been the very first ones wiped out. He knows the timing was absolute peak, but the flex is still unreal. This barbarian totally deserves a god-tier reward. He genuinely wonders what you even gift an absolute unit who soloed a legendary lich, all by himself. The next morning, frantic screaming completely shatters the castle's peaceful vibe. Marcus, who is already up and at him, calmly tells the guards to just let the guest through. The massive doors fly open and a maid scrambles inside, hyperventilating. "Boss." The Solar Faith Inquisitor Lady Christina just pulled up to visit. Miller's eyes practically pop out of his skull in pure shock. Why would someone with that much clout drag themselves out to his tiny, irrelevant territory? And boom, there she is, the literal Inquisitor of the Solar Faith. Later on, the boss sits across from her, dropping a stiff, formal greeting. As the ruler of this land, she introduces herself as Christina Isabel de Monteria, the Solar Faith Inquisitor, the one in charge of judging absolute heretics who dare to oppose the sun god. Miller already knows exactly who she is. The youngest and absolute strongest Inquisitor to ever drop in the continent's history. She is super famous for slicing the heads off 7 warlocks who signed demonic contracts, and she single-handedly shut down a massive-scale ritual. Isabel does not play games, cutting right to the chase, noting that the Miller territory is looking super chaotic right now. Miller tries to play it super cool, praying she is not there because of the whole lich disaster, so he finally bites the bullet and asks why she actually showed up. She locks eyes with him and drops the nuke. She is here to talk about the Oracle. Miller is left completely shook, but before Christina spills the divine tea, she demands something else first. She wants the full rundown on the recent incident As he breaks down exactly what went down, her jaw practically hits the floor. A random barbarian clapped the lich. Miller hits her with a yeah and drops the bombshell that the lich was the infamous Kardos. That name absolutely rocks Christina to her core. Wait, that time's monster was actually here. To back up his claim, Marcus pulls out the vessel. The second her eyes lock onto the cursed urn, her cool composure completely shatters. What on earth went down here, she whispers tightly, gripping her holy pendant. Her brain goes into absolute overdrive, hyper-fixating on one terrifying question. Is that barbarian still roaming the city? Miller drops the bomb. Yep, the ridiculously overpowered barbarian is still chilling in their turf. He explains how this absolute unit keeps defying logic, and then casually name-drops that Arthur completely trashed the legendary Swordmaster Kane. Christina Isabel is literally left speechless. She realizes an insanely broken powerhouse has just entered the chat, and frantically demands to know his tribe. When Miller reveals Arthur hails from the wasteland, the news hits Chris like a freight train. The White Wasteland. That frozen hellscape is straight-up demon territory, and that is a massive red flag for her. Suddenly, everything clicks. The puzzle pieces snap together. An unknown god-tier force rolling in from a demon-infested wasteland. She starts wondering if this wild barbarian is the actual reason the higher-ups deployed her. Out here. While Marcus stands there looking totally clueless, Christina locks in. She declares she absolutely has to meet this barbarian. Face to face, like right now. Cut to Arthur just vibing back in his room, inspecting the shiny loot he ripped straight from the lich's staff. He guesses it probably buffs magic stats, figuring he can just pester a wizard about it later. But that thought vanishes when he notices the sun is already up. Time to get this bread. Right on cue, a guard pulls up with an urgent message. The High Inquisitor of the Sun Faith is demanding an audience with him at the church. The guard throws him a nervous warning. Watch your tone and show some respect when you meet her. Arthur just hits him with a massive grin and tells him to chill out. The guard, low-key sweating, asks if he's seriously about to pull up to the holy church wearing his rugged barbarian gear. Arthur just smirks from ear to ear. Let's roll, he says. Now, quick lore drop, guys. In this universe, the gods aren't myths. They are 100% real and literally hand out superpowers, making the church the ultimate heavyweight authority. The guard escorts our OP main character across town, finally stopping in front of a massive, jaw-dropping cathedral. Arthur looks up and his hype levels instantly spike. You can tell he is genuinely blown away by the sun god's crib. The guard mentions his escort is waiting inside, so our wild pilgrim gives a quick thanks and pushes open the heavy doors, stepping into the holy sanctuary. Inside, he's instantly swarmed by 3 nuns. Welcome, Sir Arthur. One of them eagerly adds that Inquisitor Christina is expecting him, offering to lead the way. They guide him into this aesthetic, flower-filled room where a solitary woman is standing by. She turns around with deadly serious energy, introducing herself as Christina, Inquisitor of the Sun Faith. She is strictly business. Our boy flashes a grin, proudly declaring himself as Arthur the Barbarian. Secretly, he's thinking she looks way too young to hold such a cracked title, which only hypes him up more, realizing she must be insanely talented to rank up that fast. Meanwhile, Christina is already side-eyeing him, internally screaming over why this absolute giant is just standing there, smiling like a maniac. Arthur cuts right to the chase, asking why he was summoned. She crosses her arms, stating it's about the crazy dungeon incident. That lich, he completely folded. That was Kartos, an infamous monster with a massive body count. According to her, Kartos was so insanely broken that normally, it would take an actual top-tier hero just to survive him. In fact, only a true hero could have soloed him. The MC shrugs, admitting he's heard the lore, but claims the lich he fought was a total bot and basically threw the match. Seeing her hit him with the absolute biggest look of disbelief, he just closes his eyes and says, "Look, I'm just calling it how I saw it." So Isabel drops a massive flex. A holy vibe check. She proposes letting her literal god witness their conversation, acting as a divine lie detector. If he caps the god strikes, she fully expects him to back down, sweating, and even tells him he has the right to refuse. Instead, Arthur's eyes light up. Why would I ever say no? To him, this is an incredibly rare chance to experience pure, unadulterated, divine power firsthand. His golden retriever energy completely short-circuits Chris's brain. She is utterly baffled as to why he's so hyped for an interrogation. Treading lightly, she asks if this makes him nervous. Arthur just blinks at her, totally confused about what she means. He has literally zero reason to sweat, and he's been spitting straight facts this entire time. So what's there to even worry about? Seeing how absolutely fearless this guy is, she nods and fires up the holy ritual.